Happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining us this afternoon on Live Impact News. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Over the next 2.5 hours, I'm out of here at 2. I'm so used to saying over the next 2.5 hours, but since we're here and since you're tuned in, we're going to take you to live events, press conferences, live interviews. We have a live interview at the top of the hour at 1 o'clock with Michael Walden, retired NC State professor, economist, to talk about the stock market. It's back up today. We're also going to get into weather. So we have a lot going on this afternoon. I got to shout out super producer Carlene Bragg. Jeb Goldman is back from vacation. He's in here, another super producer. But again, a lot happening today, including Governor Stein, who is speaking right now. He's speaking right now live, but we wanted to backtrack a little bit to the beginning of his speech. He's talking about the state of the economy here in North Carolina. So we want to get that. We want to get you out to that speech right now. Again, this is Governor Stein on the economic outlook for the state of North Carolina.
Be with you. Mike, thank you for that introduction. Mark, thank you for your leadership of Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. You all are doing incredible things. I see Representative Brown. I know maybe Representative Baker is here, Senator Lowe, Mayor Joins, all of the elected officials in the room, of which there are many, and now I made a mistake by starting this process. Good to see you. Thank you for what you do for the people of Forsyth County. I want to congratulate, I understand Graham Bennett just won the Duke Energy Citizenship and Service Award. Very well deserved. Where's Graham? Well done. I want to thank all of you for what you do in your each unique way, for creating a vibrant economic climate here in Winston and for North Carolina. I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask y'all anyway. It's about North Carolina. Who here, like me, loves North Carolina? We're pretty blessed to be of this place. North Carolina is home to friendly and good people, home to remarkable natural beauty, home to small businesses and Fortune 500 companies. Heck, we're home to the best barbecue and basketball in America. North Carolina is home. And what we pray is that our kids and grandkids, and your kids and grandkids, also want to call this state their home. You know, our state toast declares that North Carolina is where the weak grow strong and the strong grow great. That is the promise of North Carolina, that where you come from should never limit how far you can go. Delivering on that promise is what drives me as your governor, just as I know it drives you. Much of North Carolina's recent economic success can be attributed to the leadership and hard work of many of you in this room. North Carolina has been ranked in the top 2 states for businesses 4 years running. We are the 3rd fastest growing state in the nation, trailing only Texas and Florida since the last census. And Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. has been integral to this success story. You all have helped generate more than $800 million in capital investment, creating over 2,000 jobs just since 2020. Granted nearly $1 million in minority business enterprise grants. Your education and talent development programs are creating opportunities for economic mobility for all the people of Winston-Salem. It is no wonder that you all were recognized nationally as the 2024 Chamber of the Year. What an incredible recognition. I want to congratulate Mark and their team. I was just telling Calvin outside that when the remarks were prepared and I looked at them and said, y'all won the Chamber of the Year award, it wasn't clear in my remarks, was it for North Carolina or the country? So I did my own internet research. I'm like, this is not of just North Carolina, this is of the country. That's really an incredible accomplishment. I look forward to continuing to work together to harness the great economic momentum that we have here in North Carolina to position the region and our state for success for generations to come. We've created real momentum in North Carolina, but we cannot just rest on our laurels. Other states want what we have here. We've got to stay on our toes. We've got to stay hungry, strengthening our economy, enabling businesses to thrive and workers to prosper. We've got to not only grow the economy, but also make sure that its benefits reach every corner of this state. To continue the success, I'm committed to partnering with you all to build a workforce with the education and experience needed to drive economic growth and ensure that North Carolinians across the state are able to build a career. For the past 2 years, we've been in the top 3 states for workforce, so we've seen success. We just have to continue to build on it. I am committed to increasing economic opportunity for every person, for workers, business owners alike, by increasing the number of skilled workers who can build a career here in this state. And know this, while I am governor, no state will outwork North Carolina when it comes to developing our workforce. As the state, we can set the national pace for growing the number of skilled workers, doubling the number of apprentices over the next 4 years, empowering hundreds of thousands of North Carolinians to get the credentials that they need to secure good-paying jobs. We have to support Propel NC, a funding model that rewards community colleges for certifying students in high-demand sectors like advanced manufacturing, healthcare, and IT. And for students seeking those certifications, we should make community college free. In my budget proposal I recently submitted to the General Assembly, I propose directing $250 million throughout the biennium toward workforce development. I'm recommending that we expand apprenticeship programs in state government so that we can recruit and retain talent to help serve the public, help small businesses and farmers recruit and retain talent, and establish a rural apprenticeship program. I've gotten to see the success of apprenticeships up close and personal through a program just up the road, Surrey Yadkin Works. Surrey Yadkin Works is a workforce development partnership among Surrey and Yadkin County Schools, Surrey Community College, and local employers. Students gain skills by participating in a learn and earn model where they're paid for their training. It is a great return on investment for employers who get to train their next generation of employees homegrown, and they can count on them to stick around once the apprenticeship is over. In January, I visited Surrey Yadkin Works' partnership with Alltech, a manufacturer, where students are pursuing careers in advanced manufacturing as part of their high school education, and the school is physically located within the plant. In March, I got to meet a couple young women, Emily and Haley Oriana, 2 nurse apprentices at the Northern Regional Hospital in Mount Airy. Emily is about to graduate with her resident nurse credential and already has a job lined up at Northern Regional's ICU. Haley is pursuing her own training in labor and delivery. Northern Regional used to have to depend extensively on expensive traveling nurses to address their nursing shortage. But now they have fully eliminated their dependence on traveling nurses thanks to this apprenticeship program dramatically improving their hospital's bottom line. I applaud Surrey Yadkin Works for creating a win-win-win, a win for young people, a win for our employers, and a win for the broader economy. That is why I am urging more K-12, community colleges, and industrial partners to come together to form apprenticeship opportunities for the people of the state. In fact, I announced a council on workforce and apprenticeships right here in Winston-Salem at Forsyth Technical Community College. Forsyth Tech is one of the largest community colleges in our state and boasts programs in nursing, IT, criminal justice, and several other disciplines. Along with President Spriggs, I had the chance to tour the Transportation Technology Center, and it was inspiring to see students applying the skills that they're learning. It was also a good thing that the race car I was driving was a simulator, not a real one, because I crashed multiple times. We have to build on the successes that exist in your region across this state. So I've charged our Workforce Council to do just that, chaired by State Senator Eddie Settles of Wilkes County, Secretary of Commerce Lee Lilly, and Community College President Jeff Cox, also formerly of Wilkes County. I'm eager to see the ideas that they generate about how we can advance our efforts to develop the workforce to meet the needs of industry in the coming decades. As we work to strengthen our economy, enhancing our talent pipeline is a critical but not fully exclusive part of the equation. We have also got to address costs and lower them. I understand that healthcare is a major expense for industry, just as it is for individuals. When a lot of people don't have access to health insurance, it raises the cost on all of us, because instead of going to get preventive care from a primary care doctor, they wait until the sickness is acute and they end up going to the emergency department, which is the most expensive way to provide health care. And we all pay for it once the person shows at the emergency department. This causes real problems in rural communities where the rate of uninsured population is higher and rural hospitals are precarious. That is why Medicaid expansion was such a critical bipartisan victory for this state 2 years ago. And just this month, we passed the 650,000 person threshold. 650,000 of our neighbors have health insurance today who did not just 2 years ago. So when they get sick, they can go to the doctor instead of going into bankruptcy. Just as we work together to pass Medicaid expansion, we must work together to defend it. There are federal proposals to slash hundreds of billions of dollars from Medicaid to partially finance tax cuts of trillions of dollars for wealthy people. It is a terrible trade for the people of North Carolina. We have to make this state attractive for workers, so we have to address the high cost of living. That includes the cost of housing and the cost of childcare. We have so many people who are moving to the state, as I noted, third fastest growing state in this entire country. There's that saying that if you build it, they will come. Turns out if you don't build it, they will still come. So we have to build it. We have to increase the supply of homes to meet this newfound demand. In my budget, I dedicate $60 million to leverage private sector and federal funds to develop more affordable housing and incentivize local governments to update their zoning ordinances so that builders can build more houses of all types. There are a number of legislators working on this issue of both parties. State Senators Tim Moffitt and Julie Mayfield, on a bipartisan basis, have introduced a number of bills last month to cut red tape that's inhibiting construction. One bill, for instance, would enable developers to build new housing in any area zoned for commercial or retail. They're thinking creatively about what can we do to make it easier to build housing so that people can afford to live in the communities in which they work. We can work across the aisle to get this done. We also need to lower the cost of childcare. When we invest in our youngest North Carolinians, we set them up for a lifetime of success. We also help parents to stay in the workforce. What doesn't make any sense is even though a lot of folks want to work, too many of them cannot afford to work because they can't afford childcare if they can find it at all. There are 5 families for every 1 childcare slot in this state. Getting pushed out of the workforce hurts workers. It hurts businesses. It hurts our economy to the tune of about $5 billion in lost activity each year. My budget proposes providing a child care tax credit, a child tax credit, all to help parents, increases the child care subsidy rates across the state so that providers can increase salaries, expands pre-K across North Carolina, and creates summertime enrichment programs for young children getting ready to start kindergarten. North Carolina has to be a state where families can afford to live, raise their children, and work. And when we talk about the cost of living, we have to address the economic uncertainty resulting from the federal government's activities of recent weeks. In particular, I expect a number of you may share my concerns about the recent tariff announcements and the impact they're already having on business owners and consumers. Trade wars increase costs to North Carolina manufacturers and consumers and close markets to North Carolina exporters of products, including pharmaceuticals, machinery, electronics, among many others. That includes agriculture, the number one industry in North Carolina. 25% of our agricultural products are sent abroad. We should be opening up new markets to our farmers, not having them be shut in their faces. These tariffs will prove costly to families and for businesses alike, including those trying to reestablish themselves in Western North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. If construction costs go up, let's say they go up 20%, we are going to be able to produce a proportionately fewer number of houses in reconstruction. It is just math. The tariffs on aluminum and steel are salt into the wound to Western North Carolina's craft brewers trying to stay afloat. And I know that's the same for your microbrewers here in Forsyth County. People and businesses thrive when there is certainty, not chaos. Even though some of these tariffs are on a 90-day pause, changing policies on a whim make it exceptionally hard for supply chains to reliably function. So we got a lot of things going well for us here in Forsyth, in Greater Winston-Salem, in the state of North Carolina, but national headwinds can have real consequences on us in North Carolina. Tariffs threatening to fire the Fed chair, slashing federal services, they have real consequences. We've seen a falling stock market and dollar. We've seen rising inflation and bond yields. Things are not going in the right direction for this country at the moment. Our business owners need and deserve stability. I do want to address Western North Carolina, just because I don't give a speech without doing it, because the needs remain so great. Small business is, especially in Western North Carolina, the beating heart of the economy. Those folks are struggling and need a helping hand. We have to support small businesses that are working to rebuild, whether we're talking about rebuilding physical structures or rebuilding the economy around them. My office has taken a number of steps to support small business. I'm proud of the partnership that we've formed with the Dogwood Health Trust and the Duke Endowment to create a $35 million small business grant program where eligible small businesses can apply for grants up to $50,000. So far, we've awarded nearly 1,800 grants to date, but the demand is overwhelming. There are more than 7,000 applicants for this grant program. So we have to scale the program, which is why I have urged the General Assembly to provide funding for small business relief. My administration is committed to doing everything we can to help small business owners of Western North Carolina keep their doors open through the spring so they can welcome visitors with open arms this summer and keep their employees on the job. Developing our workforce, lowering costs, supporting Western North Carolina, these are some of the most pressing economic development issues facing North Carolina. I know that the Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. will continue to lead the way, not only in this region, but the entire state, moving us forward. And I look forward to working with you all in the months and years to come, God willing, as we build a North Carolina that is safer, stronger, and more prosperous with real opportunity for every person. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. That is Governor Josh Stein delivering his State of the Economy address there in Winston-Salem. Again, that is happening live right now in Winston-Salem. All right, so today we are weather alert here in the Charlotte area. And earlier, not too long ago, we had Chris Mulcahy here in the Live Impact studio giving us an update on the forecast, what you need to be on the lookout for, and also raising our weather IQ. Let's take a listen into his forecast from earlier.
The main window of opportunity we're seeing here is between about 1 and 8. I'm going to be honest with you. This is not the best severe weather chance that I've seen, but we do have a chance for thunderstorms, do have a chance for some gusty winds, and even some hail. I think the hail threat has come up a little bit, mainly just to see it. The last time that we really had a severe chance here around the Charlotte area was April 11th, and we had some pea-sized hail. People were sending videos all in. Even though that isn't a big deal as far as it's affecting us, it's always cool to see hail, in my opinion. It's not cool when it's up to an inch in diameter, and that's what the Storm Prediction Center is saying. Hey, by the way, some of those hailstones could hurt and also damage your car. So as soon as hail is 1 inch in diameter, the size of a quarter, that's where it could dent your car, damage some siding. What actually happened last year, if you remember it, and here, I'll bring your mics up, guys. Do you remember the hail event in Rock Hill last year?
I was
Sure
here
do,
working.
yep.
I was here working.
You were here working?
Yeah.
It was right around this time of year last year. So the reason why this time of year is so bad for hail is it's about a freezing level. So up above our heads, during the wintertime, of course, it's much lower. During the summertime, it's much higher. There's going to be a level that temperatures drop down below freezing. So we're going to raise your weather IQ. For one, today, we don't have a big risk for hail. This is a new model that I was working with. It's called your significant hail parameter. So what this does is whenever there is any sort of coloration, you got a chance for hail. When you start to see those darker blues, it's showing a little higher chance. So it looks like some of these cells potentially could lead to that. But how hail forms is all about kind of an up-down nature. So what happens here is you have this one water droplet. It's uplifted what's called an updraft. Every thunderstorm is an updraft. That's that rising moist air. It goes up and down, up and down. When it goes above the freezing line, it freezes. When it drops down below, water droplets stick to it, and then it goes up and freezes. Eventually, it gets too heavy and it's going to fall. But that's the reason why, for larger hailstones, if you cut it open, it actually looks like the rings of a tree, because that's each period that it spends above the freezing line and drops down below. Now, the stronger the updraft, the stronger the thunderstorm. Usually, the taller it's going to be. Sometimes you can have updrafts up to 100 miles per hour. That can support up to baseball-sized hail. This case, I'm only talking about little guys. So when that gets too heavy, of course, it's going to bloop, fall. So today, we have that type of environment. Because it's a little bit cooler, we have that freezing level, it's a little bit lower. I already saw some signs of some hail up in the mountains, but nobody lived there, so there's no reports, unless we have some mountain men that I can contact. But we're also starting to see a lot more thunder and lightning. The more thunder and lightning you have, the more unstable it really becomes. So we saw a little bit of thunder and lightning here. So thunderstorms, they're going to happen. That's one thing we've been struggling with, even trying to get thunder and lightning here for some of these systems. I think today that changes. So regardless, I think you're going to have a thunderstorm, as I mentioned, 1 to 8. So here's 1 o'clock. Here's 2 o'clock. Whenever there's an individual cell, one single storm, think about it. It's like when you have a plant growing. When there's a bunch of other plants, they can't thrive as much just because they're sharing the soil, they're sharing the sunlight, they're sharing everything there. When you have one single cell, that usually can become a little bit stronger and allows it to grow a little bit taller. Those are the ones you usually have to watch out. They could potentially rotate. They also have a better chance of providing hail. Once they start clustering together, it's a better chance for wind risk. That's why usually when you have a line of storms, it's more wind, you don't really have the hail. So I think if we are going to see any hail, it's going to be likely before 4 o'clock from these individual cells. But this model shows by 4, everything starts to glom together. That turns into what's called a multi-cluster system. So at that point, it's more widespread. Behind that, you usually have light to moderate rain. And then by about 6 to 8 o'clock, we're clearing things out. So it's a very low-end severe risk, but if we are going to see anything, I think it's really 2 to 5 across the Charlotte area that you have the stronger weather, the thunder and lightning. But the thing is, this is only round 1 of many. We could have maybe up to about a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch, but notice this. Some areas seeing less than 500. So it's a tough forecast because it's really back and forth, back and forth. Some areas see a lot, some areas see a little, some see nothing at all. Any questions before we move forward?
Does this rain help as far as when it comes to the wildfires, McDowell County?
100%. One thing that's actually really helping is the time of year getting more moisture in the air in general. Because before it was bone dry. Like literally getting a dry throat from that. So yeah, that's going to help. It's going to wet the soil. But seeing this in this rate is really nice because whenever you have a fire, then you have a risk of mudslides that we saw in California. So this is like a nice soaking that even though you might have a torrential downpour for a brief period, it's going to be just enough rain. The rain that they actually just saw in the mountains, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, when you're talking about, when you see those darker greens for hours, that is all the recipe to
It was
cure
just
drought.
enough, right?
Just enough.
Okay.
Pretty much, think about it like the baby bear's porridge of rain.
Okay.
Yeah, so just right, everything's good. But that's the best thing that we have, Nick, is because rolling tape, we're going to see more of these rain chances because our rainfall chances scattered today, scattered tomorrow, likely on Thursday, scattered on Friday, scattered on Saturday, and then spotty Sunday, Monday. The model's just updated, so that means that it's showing probably like a 2% chance of rain. Ignore that. It's going to be dry on Sunday and Monday. So whenever we say scattered, by the way, that's a rain percentage. So whenever scattered is on the screen, or we say that, that means about 30 to 50% of the viewing area is going to see storms. When we say likely, it's over half, about 60 to 80%. I think roughly about half of us will see storms and heavy rain. The other half will barely see anything at all. But as we go forward, I want to show you exactly the setup we have. Wednesday looks to be pretty weak sauce compared to what we saw earlier. I think most of the activity, you can see really closely that line down towards the south and west. Most of the activity looks like it stays south closer to Columbia. You could have some scattered showers and storms, but it looks like more late day heading into the evening we have activity. But watch Thursday. You don't have too much going on, but then all of a sudden you just have these storms bubble up and then they exhaust themselves and they just kind of drift and dance around. That's that stationary front. So we have this front that's just trapped right over us. That's why we have so many rain chances. So if I were to pick the day that has the most rain, it's Thursday because you got some slow movers. And at this point, this is where we set the stage of what's happening next because we have more rain chances that are going to Thursday night into Friday. The areas that see the most rain up to Thursday, if they get any more on Friday and Saturday, now we're talking about a flash flood risk because we keep our storm chances around for Friday and Saturday. So if you go into the Charlotte FC game, there's a lot of big question marks where that storm system's going to settle in, but regardless, we have mid-70s on Sunday and Monday with dry conditions. So
does the heat factor into these storms sort of popping up?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, so it's actually the moisture more than anything. So today you're going to notice it's a little bit stickier than it has been. So that's the main driving force. Whenever you have a dew point over 60, and that's where we're at, you can feel it. When it's above 65, it's humid. When it's at 70, you're like, oh, this is terrible. But we're on that lower end, so it's enough storm fuel. It's really the front, Nick. So we have a front that's wedging in, so that drives up the heat and moisture, and those are the three things that usually lead to storms.
And that was Chris Mulcahy's forecast from earlier. He was here in studio breaking it down. We are weather alert this afternoon into the evening, so just be aware as you start to make plans to leave work. And also make sure you download the WCNC Plus app to your TV. Also download WCNC mobile app to get the latest forecast, up-to-date forecast, right to your phone, right to your TV. All right, we want to go to Boston where opening statements are underway. They actually happened this morning. We actually have a witness on the stand right now. This is the second murder trial of Karen Reed, a case that has made national headlines. She's accused of hitting John O'Keefe, her Boston police officer boyfriend, with her SUV back in 2022. Again, there's a witness on the stand. Let's take you there now.
No, sir.
Wasn't wearing, as a matter of fact, didn't even have a shoe on, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
And obviously, goes without saying, but I'm going to ask it anyway, that's not being appropriately dressed for the winter.
No, sir.
Yeah. You indicated that you did notice certain injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's person.
Sir.
Once you got him back in the ambulance, obviously it's lighter, meaning brighter lights. You have more equipment in the back of the ambulance. You can better assess somebody's well-being, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you indicated you had a, quote, much better picture of what we were dealing with, correct?
Yes.
You noticed once in the back of the ambulance that he had trauma to the right side of his head.
Correct.
And as a matter of fact, when you were pointing at it, I'm doing that on purpose because you pointed to the right side of your sort of forehead above your right eyebrow, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The majority, or the worst injury that Mr. O'Keefe suffered was actually to the back of his head, which you indicated, you noted, was quite matted with blood, correct?
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about the injury to the right side of his head as distinct from the back of the head injury for just a second. Before I get to that in detail, let me ask you, because I just sort of want to cover the bases. You noted the back of the head injury, correct? Is that yes?
Yes, sir.
You also noted the front right side of the head above the right eye, correct?
We did.
You noted some injury to his eyes. They looked blackened.
Yes, sir.
But primarily the right eye was blackened?
Yep.
And there was a golf ball size egg, I think you put it, over his right eye,
I did.
often called a hematoma.
Correct.
And you also noted when you got his shirt off that he had scratches along the right side of his arm. Is that right?
Sir.
You indicated on direct examination today that you believe those scratches ended where? Meaning from top to bottom? And I'm not using anatomically correct
No.
language. So from shoulder to wrist, where were the scratches that you noted?
There were several. As I noted, they were on his right humerus area.
Tell me what a humerus is.
The right arm.
Biceps.
Right about here.
Okay.
No, a little further, like between where your bicep and your tricep kind of meet. Right,
Got it.
right about in there.
Okay. And what did the scratches look like?
They were deep, infamously referred to them as furrows, but they were quite deep. You could tell that there had been some material removed.
Okay. Material meaning skin and flesh.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Some biological material. Mm-hmm. Is that yes?
Yes, sir.
And were they parallel? Meaning they were going in the same direction?
Yes.
Were there any scratches below the elbow as
There
well?
were. Yes, there were. They were not as significant as the ones on the upper arm, but they were noted.
Okay. And those were parallel as well?
Yes, sir.
And they looked like scratches to you. That's how you described them?
They did.
Last year, when you described those scratches, you curled your fingers up, exposing sort of the nails, and drew it across your biceps. Is that what you were using to describe what the sort of scratches looked like?
I just kind of used that as a landmark, to be honest with you,
Okay.
sir. It was just kind of how I quantified it in my mind.
Okay, but what you did was you did this motion.
Yes, sir.
As you said, there were furrows, and remember there was an embarrassing moment for me.
Both of us, sir.
I couldn't understand the word furrow because of the accent, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the hematoma above the right eye for a second. That's basically damage to subdural blood vessels that causes acute swelling, right?
Correct.
And a very common cause of a hematoma over one's eye could be being hit or punched in the face. We talked about that.
There could be several causes for hematoma, such as that.
Obviously. I mean, it could be a golf club, a baseball bat, or it could be a fist.
It could be.
Okay. We talked about that last year. I asked you if the injuries that you saw on Mr. O'Keefe's face, including the laceration over his right eye, was consistent or inconsistent with a physical.
You're watching live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Right now, you're watching live there in the Boston area where the Karen Reed retrial is underway. We want to shift now to a story right now that is caught a lot of folks' attention. Let's take you right now to a look at the big board, New York Stock Exchange. You see it is up by over 1,000 points. That's a big swing from yesterday where the Dow was down more than 1,000 points. I want to bring in now Michael Walden, economist, retired professor from NC State University. You got me, Mr. Walden? You hear me, Michael?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I just want to ask, I mean, what does this all mean? I mean, is it, I guess, let me ask you the first question. This is a question I got yesterday. Is it really that simple, President Trump criticizing Fed Chair Jerome Powell, the stocks take a dive, it's back up yesterday. Is it really that simple where a comment from the president can sort of just tank the market like this?
It can. Comments like that can. On today has more to do with trade policy than with the heavyweight fight, I'll call it, between Jerome Powell and President Trump, and I can come back to that in a moment. But today we've had I think, some positive news on trade and tariffs, and that we've had some reports out of Washington that several countries have been talking in earnest with the administration to forge a new trade agreement between those individual countries and the U.S. I think that's the kind of information that the market has been looking forward to. Now, this could be simply the fact that the market is up today, and of course, we don't know until the end of the day whether it will be up. But this could be a one-day thing, or it could be the start. If we continue to see some news out of Washington that there's some light at the end of the tunnel, that the high tariffs will go away. Because I think this is all based on the president's desire to have the U.S. on an equal playing field with other countries in terms of trade. And one of the problems we've had really since World War II is that U.S. has low tariffs. Many other countries have much higher tariffs. Now, that kind of made sense after World War II because we were trying to encourage those other countries, like in Europe and even in Asia, to rebuild and recover. So we were willing to give them an advantage in trade. I mean, now, 60, 70 years later, we don't need that. These countries are standing on their own. And so I think it is time to perhaps rebalance the international trade regime. And I think that's what really the president's trying to do. So when we get information that these other countries are saying, hey, we're ready to make some adjustments in our tariffs, to have an agreement with you that we're both happy with, that's, I think, what the kind of positive news that the market needs.
And some of the questions that I'm asking you are actually questions that I'm getting from friends and folks in my life that I know. I'm a part of a run club, and some of the guys there who are approaching retirement age, they were telling me, hey, I've just looked at my 401k. I lost $30,000 off my 401k. Some of the guys said, hey, I even had to take out a loan just to sort of make up for what could happen with my 401k. Should people just be patient? Should they wait it out? I mean, I know those guys are kind of closer to retirement age, but what should folks realistically do?
Well, I get those same kind of questions. In fact, I got a question like that this morning when I was at the gym that I go to. First of all, realize the stock market is virtually impossible to predict. Number two, recognize that if you're in the stock market, it's a volatile market. It's not like a CD where you know what the percentage you're getting. I recommend that people who are beginning to save for retirement definitely have some money in the stock market. I also like your portfolio to be diversified, that is, have some stocks, have some bonds, have some very secure things like CDs, have maybe some real estate, and you don't have to go out and buy a house. They'd be in real estate. There are real estate investment funds that allow you to get to that. But obviously, whenever something like this happens, people are upset. I've seen my stock values go down. But what I would tell them is simply ride it out. The investment in the stock market is a long run process. I think as we look ahead, I as a professional economist still see very positive things for our economy long run. Now, the people that have the most difficulty are those who are wanting to retire, like the gentleman I talked to this morning. So, well, I was planning to retire next year, and gosh, maybe I shouldn't. And I told him, well, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should wait until things come back and then retire. But gradually over time, as you get closer to retirement, if you have a plan of when you're going to retire, when you get close to that date, then you should make some adjustments before you get to that retirement period in order to lower your risk. Put more of your money in safer investments and less of your money in volatile investments like the stock market.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that. You said put your money in safer investments. So, look, I'm 34 years old right now. God willing, I still have some time.
You're a young man. Still heavily in the stock market. And I didn't mean to imply that someone right now, like the gentleman I talked to this morning, I didn't tell him, hey, go out and sell your stocks and invest in CDs. No. I'm saying that when you, in a normal time, probably at least I would say 10 years out from retirement, that's when you should begin to make in your investments, make some change in your investments to move toward more safety, less volatility 10 years out. But someone age 34, you've got oh, probably decades and decades ahead of working. Yeah, you should have a substantial part of money in the stock market. It will come back. I'm assured that I'm certain it'll come back. And so you just have to probably not look at your numbers right now because it will upset you. But when things come back, then away you go.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, should I be looking to buy right now?
Again, I'm not a fan of making these kind of decisions based on assessments. Oh, the market's down, the market's up. I don't know how to do that. I think you make as many mistakes as you do positive hits. I think the plan you should be on is one where you are putting money in on a regular basis in your investment portfolio. Again, that's going to be divided out up into different kinds, levels of risk for stocks. And don't look at now or any time as a good time to buy or a good time to sell. You may have some hits when you do that, but you'll probably more than likely have some misses also. So what I'm saying here is, if you were saying I'm going to contribute $1,000 a month to my retirement portfolio, then just do that on a regular basis, $1,000 a month, and have it spread out among your portfolio with certain percentages. And you can get books. In fact, I wrote a book about this. You can find on Amazon of how to spread your money out in terms of investment, different kinds of investments.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Michael Walden. I get a little bit smarter every time, every time you come on the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you for your time this afternoon. We'll be sure. I mean, this is a story that's not going away anytime soon. So you're always welcome back. We're going to have you back on the show.
My pleasure. Look forward to it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a great day. Again, yeah, the stock market, it's a big topic. A lot of folks are looking at their 401k, looking on what they can invest in. So some good advice, some good sort of guidance there, and sort of. If you don't know what's going on, it's sort of some good guidance on what's going on as well. All right, so we want to take you live now to Minnesota, where Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellison is announcing a new lawsuit on behalf of the state of Minnesota regarding funding cuts to youth sports and transgender athletes. This is happening in St. Paul, Minnesota right now. You're looking live at that press conference. Let's take a listen in.
That I will introduce Dr. Kelsey Leonard-Smith.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Kelsey Leonard-Smith. I'm the Director of Gender Care at Family Tree Clinic in Minneapolis, as well as an Assistant Professor of Family Medicine and Community Health at the University of Minnesota Medical School. Though my work directly informs these remarks, I'm speaking on my own behalf today. Caring for transgender youth over the past decade has been the very best part of my job. It's truly a gift to work with young people who have put such care into thoughtful self-reflection. Along with their families, they've taught me so much about what it means to be a human being. Besides being a doctor, I'm also a mom to 3 wonderful kids, and like many of my fellow parents, the time comes along when some days a week my kids are calling me coach instead of mama. I've seen firsthand, as a kid who played sports on teams all through college, a parent, a coach, and a family doctor to children of all backgrounds, that youth sports can be so good for kids. Besides, transgender kids are no different. And unfortunately, in particular, many of the transgender girls and young women I care for have left sports behind long before they get into my office. I see so many kids who loved soccer and softball in elementary school, only to quit by early adolescence. Just the time in life when teamwork, leadership skills, and finding joy in moving your body are so beneficial. And while we all like winning, that's not really what sports are about when you're a kid. They're about creating space for all kids to build habits for a healthy lifetime of activity. Transgender girls and women are already dramatically underrepresented in sports. Despite making a very small percentage of the population, they're an even tinier minority of our athletes. In fact, fear of
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. It's a live look at a press conference there. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison announcing a new lawsuit on behalf of the state regarding funding cuts to youth sports and transgender athletes. That press conference happening now. We want to shift over to Washington, D.C. Well, right now, there is a White House briefing that's happening. It's happening right now live on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. That's Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Let's listen in.
Border crossings in history in March, and we're seeing the same successes at our northern border. Here's how the New York Post put it. Northern border sector previously overrun by illegal migrants sees dramatic drop in crossings. We haven't seen anyone since November, end quote. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, just 54 illegal aliens were apprehended in the Swanton sector of our northern border, which stretches more than 300 miles in March. This is a drastic 95% drop from the more than 1,000 border crossings that were caught in March 2024. This is a main hotspot area that recorded more than 80% of all apprehensions along the northern border during the 2024 fiscal year. And new reporting from the Washington Times fully highlights the difference in Joe Biden's disgraceful approach to the border compared to President Trump's. Under Trump, border catch and release has dropped 99.99% from worst Biden month. You can't get much better than that. This statistic in particular is astounding. Border Patrol agents caught and immediately released 189,604 illegal aliens into the United States in December 2023 at the height of the Biden border crisis. But under President Trump, Border Patrol agents caught and released only 20 illegal aliens into the U.S. in the month of February. Thanks to President Trump, operational control of the border is becoming a reality, and the administration's historic enforcement measures are yielding huge results. Illegal aliens are finally getting the blunt message. If you cross the border illegally, you will be swiftly deported and never return to the United States of America. Efforts to arrest the criminal illegal alien invaders are continuing to ramp up. ICE Chicago arrested a Mexican national convicted of predatory sexual assault of a child in Cook County, Illinois. This week, ICE Denver arrested a Mexican national convicted of sexual assault of a child in Houston County, Texas. ICE Miami arrested a Nicaraguan convicted of aggravated battery in Hillsborough County, Florida. ICE Houston arrested a Salvadorian national convicted of attempted sexual assault of a child in Escape in Dallas County, Texas. And ICE Chicago arrested a Mexican national convicted of aggravated sexual abuse of a minor in Illinois. Despite the Democrats' insane objections, President Trump will continue to embolden law enforcement officers to arrest dangerous legal alien criminals and keep our communities safe. And also thanks to President Trump's America First economic approach, investments continue to pour into our country. Swiss pharmaceuticals company announced they will be investing $50 billion in the United States over the next 5 years, creating 12,000 new quality jobs. Regeneron Pharmaceuticals also agreed to pay Fujifilm Technologies more than $3 billion over the next decade to help manufacture its medicines in the United States. It's a top priority for President Trump to ensure we are producing critical medicines and pharmaceutical drugs right here in America, and that is exactly what we continue to see happen every day. In other news, the Trump administration has announced we will put an end to Joe Biden's illegal student loan bailout attempts. No student loan has been referred to collection since March of 2020. That comes to an end. On May 5th, the Department of Education will resume involuntary collections for borrowers with defaulted federal student loans. The student loan portfolio controlled by the federal government is nearly $1.6 trillion, but fewer than 4 out of 10 borrowers are in repayment. This is unsustainable, unfair, and a huge liability for American taxpayers. Debt cannot be wiped away. It just ends up getting transferred to others. So why should Americans who didn't go to college or went to college and responsibly paid back their loans pay for the student loans of other Americans? The Trump administration will never force taxpayers to pay student loan debts that don't belong to them. Student loan borrowers need clarity, and we're finally giving it to them. Borrowers will now be clearly expected to repay their loans, and those who default on their loan obligations will face involuntary collections. The government can and will collect defaulted federal student loan debt by withholding money from borrowers, tax refunds, federal pensions, and even their wages. America is $36 trillion in debt. We must get our fiscal house in order and restore common sense to our country. If you take out a loan, you have to pay it back. It's very simple. President Trump will not kick the can down the road anymore. Before we open it up to questions today, I want to commend our pool photographer who is in the room with us today. ABC News photojournalist Melissa Young is retiring after 44 incredible years on the job, covering here at the White House. Melissa, congratulations. You have the largest round of applause I've ever heard in this room. So there's something we can all agree on, and you've had an incredible career here covering the White House. So congratulations to you, and we hope you enjoy retirement. I'm sure you will. And everybody else in the room will be very jealous of you as you're enjoying your rest. All right, let's get to it. We have an individual in our new media seat today. His name is Tim Pool. He's a political commentator and a media entrepreneur with millions of followers, a very big platform. Currently hosts Timcast IRL, a daily news and discussions show, and The Culture War, a weekly podcast exploring cultural and political issues. His programs feature in-depth conversations on topics such as free speech, censorship, identity politics, and societal change, often engaging with a diverse range of guests. He's in Washington today because we are also hosting a local media row across the street in the Eisenhower building, which is a testament to our commitment to bring new voices into the White House to cover the president and this administration. So, Tim, why don't you kick us off today?
Yes. Many of the news organizations that are represented in this room have marched in lockstep on false narratives, such as the Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and now what's being called the Maryland Man hoax, where an MS-13 gang member adjudicated by 2 different judges, I believe, is just simply being referred to as a Maryland Man over and over again. Now, in an effort from the White House to expand access to new companies, you've created this new media seat. So I'm wondering if you can comment on following this expansion, you've had numerous outlets disparage the companies that you've had sit here, as well as the reporters. I'm wondering if you could comment on the unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies.
Sure. Well, we certainly welcome diverse viewpoints in this room, which is one of the reasons we have you in here, and there's many new faces in this room in comparison to the previous administrations. We want to welcome all viewpoints into this room. We welcome unbiased journalists who really care about the truth and the facts and the accuracy, and you rightfully pointed out the Maryland Man story, which I, from this podium, when The Atlantic published it, on that very first day, I came to this podium and said, this is wrong. The press in this room have this story wrong, and we have seen more and more evidence come to the table that we have had all along. We were always right. The president was always on the right side of this issue to deport this illegal criminal from our community. And it is despicable to see the media continue to refer to this individual as someone who is just a peaceful man living his life in Maryland. This was and always has been an illegal criminal, an MS-13 gang member, and a designated foreign terrorist. And the administration maintains our position to deport these individuals from our community. So thank you for being here, Tim. It's great to see you. Thank you. Dasha, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. I have 2 questions, one on the Pentagon and another on the economy. You said on Fox News that the entire Pentagon is working against Secretary Hegseth, but the people who were fired were Hegseth's own guys. So how do you square that, and what do you say to concerns that that's bad management?
They were Pentagon employees who leaked against their boss to news agencies in this room, and it's been clear since day one from this administration that we are not going to tolerate individuals who leak to the mainstream media, particularly when it comes to sensitive information. And the Secretary of Defense is doing a tremendous job, and he is bringing monumental change to the Pentagon. And there's a lot of people in this city who reject monumental change, and I think, frankly, that's why we've seen a smear campaign against the Secretary of Defense since the moment that President Trump announced his nomination before the United States Senate. Let me reiterate, the president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth and the change that he is bringing to the Pentagon, and the results that he's achieved thus far speak for themselves.
Is there an FBI investigation into the leaks? The Secretary said that these people would be prosecuted, so is the FBI investigating?
You'd have to ask the FBI, you have to ask the Department of Justice on what they plan to do, but certainly we take leaks with the utmost seriously across this administration. You've seen people fired from the Department of Homeland Security. The president has made it clear it's an unacceptable behavior.
And on the economy, Caroline, Peter Navarro said that it's perfectly possible to do 90 deals in 90 days. We haven't seen one just yet. How soon might we see a deal, and what evidence can you share that progress is being made in these trade negotiations?
Sure. Well, I spoke to our entire trade team this morning. There is a lot of progress being made. We now have 18 proposals on paper that have been brought to the trade team. Again, these are proposals on paper that countries have proposed to the Trump administration and to our government. You have Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick, Ambassador Greer, NEC Director Hassett, and Peter Navarro, the entire trade team, meeting with 34 countries this week alone. We are moving at Trump speed to ensure these deals are made on behalf of the American worker and the American people. And just yesterday, it seemed to get a little bit lost in the news, and I think it's a disservice to the American public that it did. The Vice President announced terms of reference for a trade deal with India. That is a big deal. We know when we look at the numbers, the monetary trade barriers and the non-monetary trade barriers from India, they have been ripping off the United States and American workers for a very long time. So the fact that the Vice President, with Prime Minister Modi, on that trip in India, announced these terms of reference, which is essentially a framework to move the ball forward to sign a good trade deal between our two nations, is great progress, and it speaks to the work ethic and the real labor that's being put into this effort by the President's trade team. Sure. Go ahead.
Does the proposals that you talk about, is that enough to extend the pauses on these reciprocal tariffs, or does the President need to see, these deals inked and signed to offer any sort of additional extension beyond the 90 days?
Well, look, ask me in July when the deadline hits. I know I'll be answering those questions from all of you in this room. There's a lot of time left, and the President's trade team is working, again, at Trump speed as quickly as they can to ensure that these deals can be made.
Are any of those conversations yet with China happening?
I actually do have something to share on that. I asked the President about this before coming out here, and he wanted me to share with all of you that we're doing very well in respect to a potential trade deal with China. As I mentioned, there have now been 18 proposals in more than 100 countries around the world who are wanting to make a deal with the United States of America, and the President and the administration are setting the stage for a deal with China. So we feel everyone involved wants to see a trade deal happen, and the ball is moving in the right direction. Sure.
Setting the stage for a deal with China, what does that mean? Has the President spoken directly with Xi yet?
I don't have anything to read out on a direct talk between the President and President Xi, but we will continue to keep you updated.
And Secretary Bessent reportedly today told investors that the trade standoff with China he expects will be de-escalating soon because, as he described it, reportedly the situation is unsustainable. Is the President considering taking steps to de-escalate the situation with China?
Again, I just read you words directly from the President of the United States. Those are moments ago. That's where his head is at right now.
Caroline.
Sure.
Caroline, I have two questions, one on immigration and one on China. First on immigration. Roughly how many illegal immigrants and aliens do we have in our country, and how many does the administration plan on deporting?
Sure. Well, you'd have to ask the Department of Homeland Security for a specific number, but we suspect it's definitely in the millions, perhaps upwards of 20 million people that were allowed into the country illegally by the previous administration. And the President and his team are focused on deporting as many as we possibly can, and they are moving as quickly as possible. The President's team has made it clear we need more funding from Congress to do more. We need more ICE agents out on the ground doing this very important work. And we also need rogue district court judges to stop acting as judicial activists, trying to block the administration from deporting illegal criminals from our nation's interior. The American public elected the President to do this, and he's following through with that promise.
And we have over 250,000 Chinese nationals in our country right now on student visas. Does the administration believe there's any national security concern when it comes to those over 250,000 Chinese nationals in our country?
Well, as you know, when it comes to foreign visas, the Secretary of State has the right to revoke visas of those who we feel are acting in a adversarial way to our foreign policy interests here in the United States. He has that authority according to the Immigration and Nationality Act. So I would defer you to the State Department for any individual case, but they are looking at individuals who are given the privilege of being on a visa in our country, and if they are acting, again, adversarial to our foreign policy interests, their visa can be revoked, and they should be aware of that.
Caroline.
Sure. Go ahead. Yes. I'm calling on you.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome.
Over the last few weeks, several countries have warned their citizens about travel to the U.S., and the Department of Commerce's own stats know that show that from a lot of countries, the number of visitors is falling. Does the White House have any message for people that might be reconsidering business or tourism travel to the U.S.?
Where did you see that report?
With the statistics coming from the Department of Commerce.
Said what? It's hard to hear you. Sorry.
That visitors from a lot of countries have fallen in the last 3 months.
I'd have to look at that report to comment on the merits of it. I think most people around the world recognize the United States of America is a great place to do business. It's a beautiful place to visit, and they should certainly come here because it's a much safer country than it was 4 years ago under the previous president. Libby, good to see you.
A question about this upcoming announcement from HHS to ban food dyes. During the first week of the administration, the FDA announced that it's pulling its plan to ban menthol cigarettes. So 2 questions for you. How do you square a ban on menthol cigarettes being pulled and then announcing this ban on food dyes? And then how does the president feel about this upcoming ban that RFK is going to announce?
Sure. Well, look, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, the president nominated him because he trusts him to make this country healthy again. It's not just a slogan. It really is a movement that has broken ground across the country. There's millions of people who believe in RFK Jr., Secretary Kennedy, and what he's doing. I don't want to get ahead of HHS with this historic announcement later and the details of it, but obviously the Secretary feels that he has reason and evidence to announce the ban on artificial dyes later, and I'll let him speak to that this afternoon. Phil.
The president started the process of reclassifying more than 50,000 federal employees as Schedule F. We've already seen him march through a number of government agencies. I'm curious, should we expect mass firings, or is this a case-by-case approach, a scalpel or a sledgehammer?
Well, look, as you saw on Friday, the president put out a statement about it. The Office of Personnel Management reclassified workers. They're now called scheduled policy/career. And all the president is trying to do is ensure that federal workers are being held accountable for corrupt behavior. If they are engaging in corruption as a government worker, they should no longer have their job. I think that's pretty common sense. He also believes that bureaucrats should be acting in accordance to the will of the American public, who duly elected this president. Not just this president, but all future presidents. If you work for the government, you should be adhering to the will of the American public and advancing the administration's goals and interests. And if you are not doing that, then you should go find another job whose interests you align with. So as for specific firings, I would defer you to the specific agencies, but the president in this move in Office of Personnel Management, it will make it easier to get rid of rogue bureaucrats who are engaging in corruption.
And then another quick question about Google, real quick. A federal court ruled last Thursday that Google's dominance of online advertising and ad tech markets violated U.S. antitrust laws. I know the president has spoken to a number of folks in big tech, and Google's CEO was even at his inauguration. I'm curious, what is the president's reaction to that court ruling?
I'll have to ask him, and I'll get back to you, Phil.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Some economic questions for you. Kevin Hassett has been a key economic advisor to the president in both of his terms. In 2022...
And he still is.
And he still is.
He was just in my office.
Absolutely. In 2022, he said that the independence of the Fed is super important. That's a direct quote. Is that something that the president subscribes to? Does he still believe in the independence of the Federal Reserve?
Well, look, I think the president has made his position on the Fed and on Powell quite clear. The president believes that they have been making moves and taking action in the name of politics rather in the name of what's right for the American economy. The president has the right to express his displeasure with the Fed, and he has the right to say he believes interest rates should be lower. He believes Americans should be able to borrow money cheaper than they currently are right now. And I also spoke to Kevin Hassett about the Fed as well, and he has called into question the Fed's independence and whether they are actually doing things, again, out of the best interest of the economy, or are they doing it for partisan reasons. The president wants to see interest rates lower. He has made that quite clear.
We've also seen, if I may, I'm sorry, one more, Caroline, just about, I said 2 economic questions. About the dollar. We've seen the dollar at multi-year lows versus the euro and other currencies around the world. Is it the administration's policy for a strong dollar? How does it view the dollar versus other currencies around the world?
The president wants to see the dollar remain as the world's reserve currency for our long-term fiscal stability and our economic growth. He's been quite clear about that. Sure.
Two questions.
And then to the woman behind you, who I haven't seen before, welcome. Go ahead, Mary.
Earth Day and then the Supreme Court, if that's okay.
That's right. It's Earth Day.
Yes.
Happy Earth Day, everyone.
I saw the president truthing about the garbage pileup from China in the Pacific, and then I believe Lee Zeldin is headed to San Diego to investigate the pile of sewage from Mexico. Can you speak to what the White House has planned for Earth Day and anything in that arena?
Sure. I do have points from the EPA. Administrator Zeldin's doing a fantastic job, and they are always sharing their accomplishments with the White House, which we very much appreciate. He will be traveling. I believe he's in California today for sewage situation. Here you go. Administrator Zeldin met with his Mexican counterpart to discuss steps Mexico needs to take to ensure the water entering the United States is clean and safe. And he's holding a press conference in San Diego today with elected officials and local stakeholders on the Tijuana River sewage crisis. I would also add from the president himself, he has always maintained he wants America to have the cleanest air and the cleanest water. And we want to do what's right for our environment and for our earth. And a lot of that is making sure that we have clean and sustainable energy, and we know that we produce natural gas cleaner and more efficiently than any country in this world, and the president wants to see that continue.
Thank you. And then on the Supreme Court, I know the court is hearing a case dealing with parents who don't want their kids having to read gender ideology books in schools. Can you comment on that case and what the Trump administration hopes to see come from that?
Sure. We hope the Supreme Court will do the right thing, and the president has been very clear. He stands on the side of parental rights, and he believes strongly that parents should have a greater say in their children's education and the content, if you will, that children are being exposed to in our public school system. Sure. Go ahead.
Caroline, thank you.
Hi.
I'm Carolina Lumetta with World News Group. The administration ended some temporary protections for Afghans, including several hundred Christians who have been punished by the Taliban. Is the president considering any exceptions for Afghans who could face death or torture if they return to their home country?
So let's just be clear about one thing. We didn't end that proactively. It expired, and it's because the previous administration illegally paroled millions of people, or hundreds of thousands of people, into the country, and then gave them temporary protective status, which again is a temporary status. It's not a permanent status in this country. And if there are individuals here who came in through the Biden administration who want to claim asylum, there is a legal process to do that, and those cases will be adjudicated by a judge on a case-by-case basis. We have a legal immigration process in this country for a reason, and all this administration is trying to do is effectuate that. Reagan.
Thank you, Caroline. I have two questions for you
Sure.
on immigration. March deportation numbers were down slightly from the same time period last year. SCOTUS recently ordered a pause on deporting turned-day Iraq members with the Alien Enemies Act. I'm curious what other tools the administration is looking at to boost those deportation numbers.
Sure. Well, we are obviously complying with the court's order. However, it was a temporary pause. The Supreme Court basically said, sit tight, and they will follow up with an order, and we're confident that the Supreme Court will rule on the side of law and recognize the president absolutely has the executive authority to deport foreign terrorists from our nation's interior under the Alien Enemies Act. We feel very strongly about that, and we're confident the courts will side with the president and his executive authority. As for deportations, we continue to deport illegal criminals under Title VIII, which is an immigration authority given to our Border Patrol agents and the Department of Homeland Security to deport illegal criminals from this country. And the administration continues to do that at record speed as quickly as they can with the resources that they have.
They recently dropped charges against the MS-13 leader caught in Woodbridge, Virginia, with the idea that this will expedite the deportation process. Does the administration plan to drop charges against other criminal illegals to speed along the deportation process?
You'd have to ask the Department of Justice. Obviously, that's within their purview, and I can't speak for them. However, it is our goal to deport as many illegal criminals and aliens from our country as we possibly can, as quickly as we can. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. We've heard so much about this Saudi trip planning, and the president's mentioned it himself before, but I don't think we've ever heard on the record what he hopes to achieve in Saudi Arabia and what the purpose of the trip is.
Sure. Well, the president looks forward to this. It was supposed to be his first foreign visit, but of course now he is going to Rome this weekend to honor the Pope and attend the funeral. The president looks to strengthen the ties between the United States and these countries in which he will be visiting. He'll be having many bilateral meetings and talks, and we look forward to the trip and hope to see many of you there.
And the meetings in London this week, do they have any nexus with the plans in Saudi Arabia?
I can't speak to that. However, I do have an update on meetings when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war. I was just in the Oval Office with the President, Steve Witkoff, and they wanted everybody to know that the negotiations continue. We feel, again, we're hopefully moving in the right direction, and the special envoy, Steve Witkoff, will be heading to Russia again later this week to continue talks with Vladimir Putin.
Is that why Rubio is not heading to London? Is he accompanying Witkoff to Moscow?
I can't speak for the Secretary of State's travel schedule. I'd defer you to the Department of State.
And more broadly, just about the peace agreement, the talks that are ongoing. Secretary Rubio had said that if things don't go the right way, that the U.S. might need to take a step back. What does stepping back look like? Is that a step back from brokering peace, or would that imply a broader withdrawal from U.S. support for Ukraine and the war?
Look, I think it would be unwise for me to broadcast that from this podium. Ultimately, that's a decision for the president to make, but he's made it very clear he wants to see peace, he wants to see this war end, and he wants to stop the killing on both sides of this war, and he's been very clear about that for quite some time, and he has grown frustrated with both sides of this war, and he's made that very known. Brian.
Thank you, Caroline. Last week, the president talked about nonprofit groups, specifically taking on crew, and he hinted that there could be further actions taken against nonprofits. Does the White House have any plans for any sort of actions against NGOs, nonprofits, or other similar groups? Is any of that coming up? Is that being worked on at this time?
I'll have to check in with our policy team and get back to you. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. Travis Gilmore with the Epoch Times. Are some colleges using taxpayer funds to further political agendas? And what is the administration's response to Harvard's lawsuit?
Sure. Well, the president has made it quite clear that it's Harvard who has put themselves in the position to lose their own funding by not obeying federal law. And we expect all colleges and universities who are receiving taxpayer funds to abide by federal law. It's quite simple. And the president made it clear he's not going to tolerate violations of federal law. He's not going to tolerate illegal harassment and violence towards Jewish American students or students of any faith on our campuses across the country. And so we will be responding to the lawsuit in court. And again, it's quite simple. If you want federal dollars, obey federal law.
And just to quickly follow up on China, any response to reports that China is targeting U.S. trade allies with potential retaliatory measures for supporting U.S. agendas?
I think the numbers and the sheer number of countries that have reached out to the United States and reached out to this administration to cut good trade deals speak for themselves. The entire world knows that they need the United States of America and they want to do business here, and so we'll stay focused on cutting good trade deals on behalf of the American worker. Stephanie.
Thank you, Caroline. Can you give us any additional details from the president's call with Netanyahu today?
I did speak to the president about it. It was a good call. They spoke particularly about Iran and the negotiations that are underway with Iran and the United States. And the president has made it very clear repeatedly, but I'll reiterate, there is no daylight between the United States of America and the State of Israel. He stands strongly behind our ally. He's made it quite clear when it comes to Iran that we want to see a deal, and Iran has a choice to make. But the president has also made it very clear, and he reiterated that in his call with Prime Minister Netanyahu today about the need for Iran to never obtain a nuclear weapon. I do have one more bit of news that I would like to share with all of you. Just give me 1 second to find it. And it's in regards to the terrorist attack that took place in India earlier today. The president has been briefed by the National Security Advisor, and he's being kept up to speed as more facts are learned. What we know already is dozens were killed and even more were injured in a brutal terrorist attack in a popular tourist location in South Kashmir. President Trump will be speaking with Prime Minister Modi as soon as he possibly can to express his heartfelt condolences for those lost. And our prayers are with those injured and our nation's support for our ally India. These types of horrific events by terrorists are why those of us who work for peace and stability in the world continue our mission. So we'll give you a readout of that call later this afternoon. There's a lot of work to be had. You may hear from the president later this afternoon as well, and we'll see you all later. Thank you.
Were any Americans among those dual American citizens?
We'll keep you posted.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Right there was a White House briefing that just wrapped up there in our nation's capital. You see a live look as reporters are making their way out of the press room right there. All right, so we're going to turn our attention now to a rally that happened this afternoon. Congresswoman Alma Adams was at Charlotte Douglas International Airport with airport workers as they call on City Council to pass an ordinance that will raise wages and benefits in order to reduce turnover and improve safety and security there at the airport. We want to take you and show you a chunk of that rally. Let's listen in.
2 weeks ago, the city announced that Charlotte Douglas International Airport had climbed all the way to the rank of 6th busiest airport in the world. So that means it's busier than LAX in Los Angeles, busier than Shanghai, busier than Istanbul. Billions of dollars, billions with a B, billions of dollars move through this airport every single year. And who made this possible? The workers at the airport made this growth possible. They are the ones. They are the ones. The workers are the ones bringing the money through that airport, making sure that Charlotte continues to grow and that CLT continues to be the important international destination and transit hub that it is. These are the workers here. Let's hear for the workers, all right? These are the workers. These workers care for disabled passengers. They protect young children traveling alone. They screen for weapons, for explosives and other threats. They sanitize and clean planes and even act as first responders during emergencies. So these are the workers that have made Charlotte what it is. These are the workers that make sure that the city continues to grow. And thanks in part to their work, American Airlines, which does the vast majority of flights here at CLT, American Airlines made $54 billion in revenues in 2024 alone. $54 billion. But who pays for those revenues? How can you make $54 billion when there are workers that do not have a place to sleep at night? When passengers are paying record high fares to get service from workers that do not have enough food to eat? It is the worker and the passenger that pay the price for American Airlines' record profits. Poverty wages, lack of benefits, and unsafe working conditions are causing extreme turnover at Charlotte Airport. Boo, that's right, boo. This has created a constant revolving door for workers and a work environment that is not stable. Do you, the passengers at CLT, want to fly through an airport where you pay record ticket fares, but the workers making the airport safe are often too poor to afford a place to live or food to eat? Is that the airport you deserve? Is that the Charlotte we deserve? Are those the wages we deserve? Are those the benefits we deserve? And are those the prices that flyers going through Charlotte deserve to pay? No. So safety for the flying public should always come first. When I say safety, we say first, safety. 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 So we need a stable, trained frontline workforce, especially during an emergency. American Airlines must ensure that the workers who keep their passengers safe are compensated fairly. But they refuse to do so. They refuse to do so. The Charlotte City Council, which owns and operates this airport, must use their authority to correct this wrong. They must introduce Case Now, an ordinance that will help make the airport a safe and secure place for everyone who works there and everyone who flies through it. So when I say fly safe, we say pass Case. Fly safe. Fly safe. Fly safe. 32. That's right. When we fight, we win. All right. So thank you so much. Now to take us through the rest of our important speakers who are here to support this effort, I'd like to bring up my friend, former Mayor Pro Tem and fighter for the working class here in Charlotte, Mr. Braxton Winston.
Well done, Jacob, and thank you, 32BJ, for all the work that you're doing for workers at the airport and all over Charlotte and North Carolina. Look, I'm not going to say much because we are here to hear from workers, and we have a few dignitaries here, and we'll get to introducing them. But first and foremost, I want to introduce my friend and a great representative of workers all across Charlotte, my friend LaShonda Barber, a worker at the airport is going to talk to us and give her testimony.
Let's go, LaShonda. Girls, please. We got your back. You know. Good morning, everyone, and thank y'all all for coming today. My name is LaShonda Barber. I am a ABM International Trash Truck Driver, here serving American Airlines planes in Charlotte Douglas Airport. I stand here today with my co-workers and allies as we continue to fight for a safer airport here in Charlotte. For the past few years, we've been fighting for better wages, benefits, working conditions, access to cold drinking water, and basic respect. These things ain't much. People don't stay working at Charlotte Airport because the pay is too low. That's right. And the environment they expect us to work in is terrible. Yeah. I work long hours lifting heavy trash bags all day that cause many body pains. And some of my co-workers going through the same thing, but not just lifting bags for doing the work. To make things worse, sometimes during the hot summer months, with all the work I do, there's no air conditioning in my truck that I got to work in all day. We don't even have enough drivers. I barely have time to take breaks, eat, even drink water because I'm so busy. That's right. With all the hours I work, I still don't make enough.
That ain't right.
It sure ain't right. I need more. I'm the sole provider for my family. I take care of my mom, who just became cancer-free, but still need to work to help out, which hurted me so bad because she had to go back to work when she needed to rest her body. I can't afford to take unpaid time off. I can't afford to take a vacation. I can't even take my grandbaby on a vacation and have not taken it yet since he's been on this earth. I would love to take him somewhere, but it's not possible. If we were paid better, had real benefits, experienced drivers like myself would stay. My co-workers would stay. This would be a job people could see themselves doing for retirement, but till retirement. Because this is a career job. Aviation is a career job. And all the workers who actually here and work at the airport, it's in a career job, but we got to make it better and safer so they can be in that career job. That's right. That's right. What we asking for is simple. For city council to act now. Introduce case and hold a committee hearing. Be the change in the city. And invest in the workers who make travel possible. And thank y'all so much.
Thank you, LaShonda. Got a WBTV. Whoa, look at that. Still got it, guys. Still got it. Well, I want to thank LaShonda and all the other workers that we're gonna speak. It takes real bravery to stand out in front of here, in front of all these cameras, and testify to your truth. So we appreciate that. Next, I'm going to bring up a champion for workers, for Charlotte, and for all North Carolina. I can speak from experience. When we experienced the pandemic a couple years ago.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. That was a rally that happened earlier today at Charlotte Douglas International Airport with airport workers, along with Congresswoman Alma Adams. We're going to send you now east to Nash County. Right now, Sheriff Keith Stone is hosting a press conference there at the Sheriff's Office on updates regarding a shooting that occurred during a warrant service with the U.S. Marshals. Again, that press conference is underway live there in Nash County. Let's take a listen in.
Chase ensued into the woods located directly behind the residence. When the marshals and the deputies called up with Donald Fields inside the woods, murder charge. Shortly after 7:30 this morning, U.S. Marshals Task Force and Nash County deputies arrived at 4892 Crabtree Lane in Nashville, North Carolina. The suspect was seen outside the residence, and when engaged by the U.S. Marshals Task Force, a brief foot chase ensued into the woods located directly behind the residence. When the marshals and the deputies called up with Donald Fields inside the woods, it was identified that he was holding a pistol to his head. Fields made a brief statement implying that he was not going to be taken into custody and then sustained a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Deputies and agents immediately attempted life-saving interventions until EMS arrived, but they were unable to successfully save the life of Donald Fields. Fields was pronounced deceased on scene. The North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation was notified, which is our policy in these situations, and are conducting an investigation in association with the Nash County Sheriff's Office. I'll now turn it over to Sheriff Stone for any questions you may have.
Sheriff, was Fields living at this house, or was he passing through? Why was he in North Carolina?
He had moved here. I guess he was an absconder on the run, moved to this residence, and we have just found out shortly that this house also had another federal fugitive in it, and he's in custody at this time also.
Talk a little bit about, the precautions that you have to take when something can go wrong within a matter of seconds.
So I was notified last night by our Marshal Service, and I want to commend the Marshal Service for what they do. They go out and get the most dangerous individuals that other law enforcement agencies are not equipped to handle. They track down very bad people and take them into custody. It's a very dangerous job, probably one of the most dangerous jobs in federal law enforcement, because they could get the worst of the worst. This situation is they had a warrant and they needed a few deputies to go help them take this person into custody. But as you see, they go to a house of crime. They've got two different individuals in there with federal warrants. Both of them had robbery charges or weapons charges, violence. This individual here had a murder conviction and pulled 20 years in prison. Goes back and commits another murder, allegedly, in New York, and we have warrants on him for second-degree murder. And the Marshal Service tracked him to this location in Nash County. We were notified last night. They go out to make an arrest today, and it ends up in a shooting of the individual committing suicide. One thing I'd like the public to understand is, yes, this man did commit suicide. Look at the families that it touches. Look at the law enforcement officers that's got to go home and be with their families tonight and relive the situation the rest of their life, seeing somebody shoot themselves in the head in front of them. It's not an everyday same situation. It's a very dangerous job, and I want to commend that Marshal Service for doing what they did, and our deputies today being on their game so nobody else got hurt. These type of individuals that are roaming the streets are very dangerous individuals. They're dangerous to the community, and that thin blue line of law enforcement is what stops them from continuing their criminal enterprise. As this individual here, he had already been to prison for 20 years, and he's already got another warrant for murder, so it's not like that they're not dangerous people. The second individual in this house has weapons violations, and he's a absconder. And they come to places like, who would think, in Castaic, in a quiet little neighborhood, and move in, and you end up with this type of activity. So it's a very dangerous job, and I just commend the Marshal Service and these deputies today for their diligence in helping keep our community safe.
Just to clarify, so he served the 20-year sentence, then was he out on probation and parole, and then can you walk us through that?
From what I gathered is he was committed a robbery and a murder conviction in 2000, and from that time he pulled his sentence. Evidently he has a probation or parole, whichever the state has up there. He absconds from that. The local authorities up there did not have the ability to find him. They utilized the United States Marshal Service. They track him down and they find him in a home here.
In Connecticut? He was in Connecticut with a robbery and a murder?
That is correct. And then he has a murder warrant from the city of New York or the state of New York.
So when he got out, he allegedly committed another murder.
That is correct.
Sheriff, was anyone else in the home at the time of the self-inflicted shooting?
There was Lonnie Howley, and he is wanted also out of Connecticut on federal violations of firearms.
That's the one that you were talking about?
Yes, I talked to him earlier today, and then lo and behold, there was warrants on him also. And also our narcotics team has been activated, and they're in the process of conducting a search warrant this time for narcotics in the home.
And what is his name again, Sheriff? Lonnie?
Lonnie Hawley, spelling the first name Lonnie, last name Hawley, Hawley.
2 questions. How is he related to the dead suspect? And did they go there looking for this second guy too?
No, they did not know that Lonnie was at this residence or had any warrants on him until the deputies started conducting interviews of this self-inflicted shooting, and then they found out he had warrants on him. From my understanding, in the brief conversation that I had with him today, he was some type of kin to our deceased.
So Howley is the second individual, or is he a third individual?
What's that, ma'am?
You said that there were 2 individuals, the dead guy and someone else who had federal charges. Howley was that second person?
Howley was the second person. Allegedly, he was in the house when the deputies and the Marshal Service arrived, and he came outside after the incident.
Can you specify what kind of weapon that Fields used? You said pistol was like a revolver or some automatic, and was it his gun?
It appears to be that it's a 9mm semi-automatic weapon. He is a convicted felon. He should not have a weapon. That's the last thing a felon needs is a weapon. And I don't know if that gun is stolen. The State Bureau of Investigation is conducting that investigation at this time because it is a incident where we felt it would be best, since we were involved in the onset of it, to let another agency come in. So they're checking the status of that weapon, but from the weapon that I saw, it appears to be a 9mm semi-automatic weapon, and it still had several rounds in the magazine.
So if he had not committed suicide, he would have also been taken into custody for possession of firearms.
That is correct.
Sheriff, how long? Sorry, go ahead.
How close were your deputies and marshals to this man when he pulled the trigger, and were they in any danger of being shot at?
Absolutely, they're in danger. When the deputies pulled up and the United States Marshal Service pulled up, he was in the backyard cleaning up around a bulldog or an American Terrier, and he sees the deputies. He has the weapon on him. He takes off, crosses a fence. The deputy pursues him, jumps the fence, and runs probably 150, 200 yards in the woods. The individual then turns around and the deputy challenges him, and then the comments are made that he can't be taken back, that he can't go through this or something of that nature. Takes the gun and sticks it to his head and pulls the trigger. From the scene where I went down and looked at it, he was no more than 10, 15 yards from him. But at least it's a incident where the individual did not make law enforcement have to make that decision to end his life. He did it on his own.
And Howley and his mother were there, is that correct?
His mother is not there. This was all information that I got from the second party, who was also a federal fugitive.
Was Howley inside or outside?
Was the second suspect in or out of the house?
He was outside of the house when I spoke to him, but he was inside the house when the onset of the foot pursuit was initiated.
How long do you anticipate them living there and kind of holding up in this house in Castalia? Any idea?
Well, they were still moving stuff in, so, who knows?
So is the second suspect in custody?
He is in custody at this time, and they're conducting a search warrant on the home at this time.
Do we know where Fields was seen before he came to North Carolina? Like any last particular time he may have been spotted by anyone at law enforcement? Any video or pictures of him?
I don't. That would be the United States Marshal Service. I don't inquire into their great ability to track individuals. I just know that usually when the United States Marshals start tracking someone, they will soon be in custody.
Has there been a next of kin identified to claim the suspect's remains?
The next of kin was notified, but he is in custody at this time.
Oh, he's incarcerated?
He's in custody.
He's Hawley.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
so they are related.
Yes.
So Hawley and Fields are related.
He tells me that they are related.
You say how?
I didn't get deep in conversation with that.
the homeowner face any charges out of this?
Holly is supposed
No,
to.
the homeowner.
The homeowner is
All right, folks, live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Vanessa Rufus, taking over for Nick Sturdivant. We were just listening live there to the Nash County Sheriff giving an update on a shooting that happened early this morning. This was as U.S. Marshals were trying to serve a warrant on a murder case out of New York. And essentially the big update we heard from this was the person reportedly shot themselves before any authorities were able to get near them. But we're hearing U.S. Marshals did not fire a shot. No law enforcement officers were injured in this situation. More updates on that to come. Once again, that's out of Nash County, North Carolina. Meantime, we want to turn to a big event for the Charlotte area tomorrow as far as sustainability goes and investment into the Corridors of Opportunity program that we are seeing across the city and across the county of Mecklenburg. So we want to talk about this ribbon cutting ceremony that's happening tomorrow morning over at the Pepper Tree Apartments. And this is regarding a program called Carolina Car Share. And so this is a low-cost electric vehicle car sharing program. And there's a multitude of goals and purposes behind this program. But here to talk about it a bit more, we have Heather Bullock, who is the Chief Sustainability and Resilience Officer for the City of Charlotte. Thank you so much, Heather, for joining us to talk about this program.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Well, let's start off first and explain Carolina Car Share. I gave kind of a generalized definition of it, but how does this program work? Where are y'all setting up and what is the goal for this?
Yeah, absolutely. So our very first place that we're launching is at Pepper Tree Apartments. So that unveiling is tomorrow. But basically how it works is we have 2 EVs, electric vehicles, that are at the location, and residents have to download the MDO Mobility Development app onto their phone, and then they will go to the app, open the app, and select the location, and then they will reserve the vehicle for when they want to use it. So it's on an hourly basis. So it costs about $5 an hour to rent the car, and a total of $60 for the day. So if they want it for the whole day, it's $60, and their first ride is free. And there's other different incentives that folks can get if they take a survey about their experience and other things.
And so we talked about, of course, Pepper Tree, and we've done reporting here at WCNC Charlotte about this community. This is an affordable housing community where we've seen various investments, not just Carolina Car Share that's coming there, but talk about Pepper Tree Apartments and why this is a community that's being targeted for this car sharing program, and why is it so important for folks living in this community to have this access?
Yes, so as you said, Pepper Tree is in one of our corridors of opportunity, which are areas of Charlotte which have historically been underinvested. And the corridors of opportunity really seeks to change that by prioritizing city investments in these communities through cross-departmental collaboration and implementation. And so Pepper Tree is really an example of those layered investments. So here, as you spoke about, this is what we call a NOAA development, so a naturally occurring affordable housing. And so the city went along with Ascent to do energy efficiency upgrades at these apartments. And then along with that have brought the car share program to this development as well. So they have clean transportation to use at any time.
I mean, speaking of clean transportation, I feel like this is just one effort that we're seeing on behalf of City of Charlotte to try to move towards greener transportation, and there's other initiatives. Of course, it's Earth Day today, so probably pretty timely for us to talk about any other things that the city is working on that front. Is there anything that we should know about sustainability that's, coming down the pike, or things that are about to launch, or even just discussions that you're having that are maybe not totally germinated, but things that you're looking at on the city front?
Absolutely. We've got lots of irons in the fire. So this is our first location for the EV car share. Carolina Car Share is what we call it. So this is going to be at Pepper Tree, but we'll also have a location near Siegel Point Apartments. So at the Innovation Barn, through a partnership with Envision Charlotte, we'll have one at the Belmont Center, which is a community center in the Belmont neighborhood. And we'll also have one at McNeil, which is in the north end of Charlotte. So we're really excited about those. Additionally, we're still striving towards that zero carbon goal in our city fleet. So we continue to get EVs. We just recently received our electric fire truck, which we're really excited about. We're receiving our first electric rear loader for trash pickup for yard waste at the end of the month. So we're really excited about that. We're also getting ready to launch a Solarize campaign. And if you don't know what Solarize is, it's basically a group buying solar program so that residents can take advantage of lower prices for solar. And we're also going to be launching a grant program along with that for low and moderate income residents. And this is for all of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. We're working together with Mecklenburg County, Town of Davidson, and others to help our full community take advantage of solar.
That's a really interesting concept. I guess I want to know, why is it so important for the city to be looking into all of these options and basically, trying to pave the way for more and more sustainability efforts, from a government perspective?
Absolutely. Well, cities are the biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the world. And although that seems a big daunting problem, it also means that cities have the greatest opportunity to make a difference. And we really see that, and we have been striving for that, for a very long time. And when our city council urged us into our goal to become a low carbon or zero carbon city, we took that on and we were serious about it and got to work.
All right. Well, really enjoyed learning a bit more about your efforts with Carolina Car Share, and it sounds like you'll be at that ribbon cutting tomorrow morning with the mayor and Representative Molina from that district. So I hope it's a nice day for everyone, and we really appreciate you taking the time to talk a bit more about all the efforts that you're undertaking with the city. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Happy Earth Day.
On WCNC Plus, from that conversation to another one. This is a crash, actually, we're seeing. Carlene, you want to go to that? So this just came into our newsroom just a few moments ago, so bear with me as I read over some of this information from Huntersville Fire is where we've got this coming to us from. This is the update on the Beatties Ford Road crash. Looks like we are seeing plans for an extended closure because it looks like there's going to be an investigation on this scene. Let's give you a little bit more information as far as location. Beatties Ford Road and Sample Road. This is a serious crash that's reported. It sounded like there could be paramedics on scene, fire on scene, large response here. This is okay. Unfortunately, it is a situation where we saw someone has lost their life. Okay. So once again, Beatties Ford Road, Sample Road is where we're seeing this big crash scene with, unfortunately, one person who has passed away. Looks like this will be a closure once again for probably a couple hours. If, I could guess, usually we see a couple to up to 4 hours sometimes with a deadly crash investigation, depending on the agency and depending on the situation. But the folks here who are responding to the scene obviously will have to do not only the investigation portion, but they'll also have to clear the scene out, which can take some time. So we'll continue to follow this here on Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus, but we did want to get you that update here just a few moments ago that we learned a serious crash in the Huntersville area, Beatties Ford Road and Sample Road. Unfortunately, somebody has passed away, and authorities expect to be on scene here working the scene for quite some time. We'll let you know as we get more information about the ETA, by the way, of that road reopening. Of course, we're a little bit far away from the evening rush, but if this does linger for a couple hours, that could put us squarely in the middle of the rush hour commute. Okay, we want to turn now to another big story for us today here on Live Impact News. This is a story that we've been following out of Boston, and we've got this Karen Reed trial that is getting underway. This is the retrial, of course, since the last trial back in July ended in a mistrial. She is accused of killing her police officer boyfriend by backing over him with a car, facing multiple charges here. And so we had opening statements beginning today, and it looks like we possibly have a witness now that is on the stand. Let's listen in now.
Absolutely, correct?
Could I have a page and number, please?
Where is that, Mr. Jackson?
Volume 8. Page 151, lines 14 through 16.
Can you give me the lines again?
Lines 14 through 16. I'll just allow counsel to get that up.
If we could pose the entire question and give content to it, please.
Okay.
May I?
Yeah, so do you intend to show the whole question?
The whole question that I asked and his answer, yes.
All right, now I'll give you the opportunity on redirect, Mr. Chairman, if it's not. Go ahead.
Is it true that in answer to the question, quote, so it's fair to say your memory is a little bit faulty as it pertains to that time frame, your answer was absolutely. Correct?
From last year?
What you testified to last year about conversations that you had with Trooper Proctor around February 8th of 2022.
Yes, sir.
And you would agree, as you sit here, that your memory is still faulty about your conversation with him, correct?
With Trooper Proctor? Yes, sir.
So you're not saying you didn't say that the statement was made to a woman, correct?
Objection.
Are you saying that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, next question.
Thank you. And you're also not saying that you didn't say to Trooper Proctor that you saw Karen Reed praying over John O'Keefe.
Objection.
So I'd like you to ask that differently. Did you say that?
I have no recollection of saying that ever.
Okay. Next question.
My point is, if you have no recollection of it, you're not denying saying it.
Objection.
Are you denying saying it?
Yes.
Okay.
So you do have a recollection that you never said it. Do you understand the difference?
Oh, sir, I don't believe I've ever said praying. That's really not something that I would have said. I didn't see it that day. It didn't happen. I don't remember ever saying prayed.
You didn't
in regards
see it
to this case ever.
You didn't see it that day, and it never happened. That was your words just now, correct?
Break that down for me.
You didn't see it that day, and it never happened. That's what you're saying about the praying statement, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in that same exact statement, you also included the phrase, I hit him, correct?
No, sir.
In the statement that you made to Trooper Proctor?
The report that Trooper Proctor wrote?
Correct.
Again, I don't remember ever saying the words praying over him. I do distinctly remember I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Which doesn't appear in that report, does it?
Objection.
I'm going to sustain that, Mr. Jackson. You directed him only to page 2.
Understood, Your Honor. I'd like to show you a short portion of a video, the same video that you were asked to look at on direct examination. And Your Honor, I pray to the court, I can certainly mark it as a defense exhibit or for
So
identification.
is this going to be an exhibit by agreement?
It is.
Okay,
It is.
So we now that, Madam Court Reporter, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. With the court's permission, may I play a portion of that video for the jurors, publish it?
Okay. Which portion so people know?
I'm going to start it at about I want to say 6:55. Mr. Walt could cue that up. Before you play it, can we have it on that screen as well, or is it only playing to this screen?
I don't know. When Ms. Gilman did it, it was both. Great.
There we go. All right. Before we play it, can I ask you a quick question about this?
Sure.
It appears that this is paused. Do you recognize this as being the same video that you were shown this morning by Mr. Brennan?
I do.
All right. Describe the scene.
So that is 34 Fairview Road. The lights in the background, I believe it is either right as we pulled up or right as we're pulling up.
Okay. Same dash cam video.
Yes, sir.
Can we scroll this to the 6:55 runtime spot, please? Pause it. Okay. Do you see the individual on the left? Far left.
Yeah, the jacket?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Who's that?
I believe that's Firefighter Flamati.
You previously indicated that when you heard Ms. Reed make this statement, that firefighter Flamati was on his knees providing CPR at the same time you were knelt down providing the airway.
This isn't when it was
That's
stated.
not my question. Is that what you said?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. You indicated earlier when you heard this statement by my client, you were very detailed. Firefighter Flamati was knelt down providing chest compressions at the same time you were knelt down providing airway support for Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
I had also said that at some point
That's a
Firefighter
yes or no
Flamati
question.
had
Objection.
So I'm going to let the witness answer the question.
had transferred CPR to Firefighter Kelly. Firefighter Kelly did take over compressions at one point.
Okay. That's not my question.
Okay.
My question is an easy one. Did you say that when Miss Reed walked over to you and you had this dialogue with her, she made that statement, that firefighter Flamati was on his knees providing chest compressions at the same time you were knelt down providing airway support?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Firefighter Flamati, your testimony, appears to be standing up right there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Let's play the video forward for just a second. Stop it. What did you see firefighter Flamati do just now?
I believe he just knelt down.
Okay. So at this point, he's kneeling for the first time, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he's about to provide chest compressions as your memory serves, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's go ahead and play it forward. Pause. Did you see my client in that photo? In that clip?
No, sir.
You didn't see her?
Okay, folks,
Oh,
we
no, I
are
did see
breaking
it.
in
Yeah, I
here
don't see her on right now.
to get you
Right.
an
She just walked
update
off, right.
on
Sorry.
the crash that we've been following out of Huntersville. This is the deadly crash that is at Beatty's Ford Road and Sample Road. We're just now getting live images from our crew there on scene, and as expected, we are seeing detours in place. In fact, it looks like folks are being forced to turn off either onto a side road or turn around as they approach this scene. A little bit of background here. This came into our newsroom just before 2 o'clock, so this is a brand new scene, relatively speaking. We had some reports of multiple first responders having to go to this scene, so not only police and medic, but also the fire department. And sadly, as we just told you, we are hearing one person has lost their life. Authorities, as you can see, blocking the road, they've told us that they expect to have this roadway closed for quite a bit. That's pretty typical when it comes to a deadly crash. Not only do authorities typically have to do any sort of medical attention, they have to attend to anybody who might be involved with this crash. They have to investigate the scene. And with a deadly crash, that does come with a little bit more thorough of a look. You also have them having to clean the scene, clear the scene, get everything prepped on the roadway for it to be safe for folks to drive on there again. So We do expect that this will be closed for probably at least a couple of hours, but once we get an exact estimate for that time reopening, we'll certainly let you know. I will say from my experience reporting on traffic in the past, I usually see it could take up to about 4 hours for a scene to clear when it is a deadly crash. So that would potentially put us into the rush hour portion of the day. So once again, for folks who are just joining us here live on Impact News on WCNC Plus, live look here, Huntersville, where folks are being asked to steer clear of Beatty's Ford Road in the area of Sample Road due to a deadly crash. We'll keep an eye on this. Of course, as you can see, we have a crew here, so as we get more information or new images, we'll pass that along to you here on Live Impact News. Meantime, we do want to send you back to the Boston area where we've been listening on and off to the Karen Reed trial getting underway, retrial, we should say. And we've been hearing as of late witnesses speaking, and it looks like they're actually playing perhaps some evidential video right now. And this is Karen Reed once again, who is accused of killing her police officer boyfriend. We'll take you back there now.
Chest compressions?
Okay, let's go ahead and play it. Pause. What's happening now?
Where Mr. O'Keefe's on the scoop stretcher and he's being transferred to the ambulance stretcher.
So that's the entire time Mr. Flamati, firefighter Flamati, was giving chest compressions. It's captured right here on this video, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And now Mr. O'Keefe is up on the stretcher, and you are no longer knelt down?
No, sir.
And firefighter Flamati is no longer knelt down?
No, sir.
And you're now following the stretcher with, it looks like, 2 or 3 other EMTs, correct?
I am not in that frame, sir.
Okay, so you've walked away.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's go ahead and play it forward. Pause it. You see where my client is?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and play it. Do you see firefighter Flamati or firefighter Kelly continuing to give chest compressions?
Yes, sir.
Which one is that? Do you know?
I believe it's firefighter Flamati.
Flamati?
Believe so.
Okay, so he's still doing all the chest compressions from start to finish?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what's happening right now?
Now we are transferring to ambulance 1.
And where's my client?
Right front and center.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
We can realize that. If I may have just a second. With regard, just a couple of more questions with the court's permission.
Okay.
I'm going to change gears. With regard to what you talked about on direct examination, the hypothermic conditions, you're not a medical doctor, correct?
No, sir.
You don't diagnose patients?
Sir.
You're not diagnosing that John O'Keefe suffered from hypothermia that night?
No, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Can you follow up, Mr. Brown?
Please. Firefighter Nuttall, the video the defense just showed you, did you notice any differences between that video and when I showed it to you, and that it doesn't have the time on it?
Yes, those were 2 different time frames on that video.
And when we spoke about when the defendant said to you, I hit him, that wasn't shown to you in that video just now, was it?
No, it was not.
So if we go back, will you be able to explain where you came from and firefighter Flamati came from and when you first went over to John O'Keefe?
Sure.
With the court's permission, Ms. Gilman, if you could start that video. I think it is 6:11, please. Now stop it there. Do you see that this exhibit has timestamp on the top
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please continue. Could you stop, please? Do you see the red lights on the left?
Yes, sir.
Is that when you believe that you first arrived?
Yes, sir.
And that note says 6:11:05. Could you continue, please, Ms. Gilman? Please watch to the left. Stop, please. Is that when you first arrived? And
For folks who are watching here on
John?
Live Impact News, just wanted to let you know, because we've got two images you're looking at right now live. So in full, we have this live feed coming from the Boston area where the Karen Reed retrial is underway, and we've been watching some evidential video that's been played right now for jurors. In the bottom right corner of your screen, just wanted to let you know what you're seeing there. This is our live feed. Our crew is on scene right now of a deadly crash in Huntersville happening at Beatty's Ford Road and Sample Road. So just wanted to let you know what you're seeing. And once again, if we get any new details on this Huntersville crash, we'll bring that back in full and let you know, but we'll leave it up in this bottom right corner of your screen for now.
Stop, please. Okay. Do you see the defendant in that screen?
Yes, sir.
Do you see her moving from right to left towards you?
Sustained as to the form.
Okay. What direction do you see her running in that screen from right to left?
She's running towards where the three of us are grouped.
Okay. Please continue. Stop, please. Is it at that time the defendant said to you that she hit him?
Yes, sir.
And you remember that?
I do.
Okay. I'm done with the tape. Thank you very much. Now, you were asked questions about your memory?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you were asked the questions about Trooper Proctor, when you were saying that you didn't remember, were you referring to the conversation with Trooper Proctor, or were you suggesting you didn't remember what happened that morning?
I don't remember the interview with Trooper Proctor. I remember it happened. I don't remember the substance of what was discussed.
Recorded, or just a conversation between you and the trooper?
I do not know if it was recorded.
You asked questions. I want to ask you about questions on Mr. O'Keefe, and you mentioned that there was some type of blood clotting on the back of his head?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You noticed there were abrasions on his right arm?
Yes, sir.
You noticed there was a hematoma on the right side of his head?
Yes, sir.
Did you see any bruising on his right knee?
Don't recall, sir.
Did it stand out to you that all of his injuries, all of them that you saw other than the cut on the back of the head, that they were all on his right side?
Yes, sir.
Did you notice any hematomas on his left side?
I did not.
Did you notice any scratches or abrasions on his left side?
I did not.
Did you notice any marks that would be consistent with an altercation on the left side of his body?
I did not.
You were asked about the cause, and you said that you don't know the cause. You weren't there, were you?
No, sir.
You asked if it was consistent with being punched, and you said it could be.
Yes, sir.
Could it be consistent with being clipped by a car?
Objection. Sustained as to the form.
You were asked questions about clothing.
Yes, sir.
And you had at one point said you thought that Mr. O'Keefe was wearing a winter jacket. Do you have any memory that when you first got there, or when you first got there, do you have any memory whether there were any towels wrapped around Mr. O'Keefe's head?
I remember there was a white cloth of some sort on the scene.
Okay. And when you were asked about your memory regarding the clothing, Was the clothing of what was utmost importance to you at that time?
No, sir.
And why is that?
I was, again, focused on Mr. O'Keefe's airway and ventilation.
Okay. And when you were asked about the clothing, do you remember if you added anything else about your certainty or uncertainty about clothing when you previously gave a statement or testimony?
I believe when I testified last year, I did note I had no part in removing any articles of clothing or anything like that. That was not my job in the back of the truck.
Do you remember any recognition of the fact whether you were certain or not about clothing?
Repeat the question, sir. I'm sorry.
Well, is there anything that would refresh your memory about what you had said about clothing?
Objection. Ask a different question first.
You had mentioned that you had some difficulty about clothing. Do you remember what you had previously said?
I remember there was some difficulty of getting...
Okay, folks, Vanessa Rufus here in the Live Impact News studio. You're watching on WCNC Plus as we are taking you away now from that Karen Reed retrial that's happening in the Boston area. Turning now to an update that we just got today from NCDHHS. This is regarding Mpox. So this is a case where we're seeing there are some new wastewater samples showing that there's a new detection. It looks like it got picked up at a wastewater plant in Greenville, North Carolina. So we wanted to talk to health officials about this a bit more, just to kind of see what this means for the state and what folks need to know to stay safe as we go forward. So here to talk about that, we have Dr. Emma Doran, who is Medical Director for Vaccine Preventable and Respiratory Diseases with NCDHHS. Emma, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, happy to be with you today.
So let's talk about Mpox for folks who have not been maybe thinking about this too much lately, because we know for a while during the pandemic on the tail end, this was certainly a big topic. But it's back now as far as in the headlines. And what do people need to know about Mpox? What does it do to the body, and how is this transmitted?
Yeah, Mpox, some people might know it by the former name monkeypox, and it's a disease that is caused by the monkeypox virus, and there's two strains of that. We call those clades, and so there's clade 1 and clade 2. They both spread the same way, and they can be prevented the same way, but Mpox is usually spread through close contact. Usually that's skin-to-skin contact, but sometimes that's through sexual activity, and it can cause quite serious clinical presentation. And as you mentioned, in 2022, we had a large outbreak, and that was clade 2. And so this new detection is clade 1. So wanting to make people aware of this new clade that we have found this detection for in North Carolina.
So as far as what folks need to know about this wastewater sampling, I mean, I definitely remember, doing a lot of reporting back during the COVID pandemic when I think maybe a lot of folks in the public became aware that, hey, you can test for a lot of different viruses by testing the wastewater that's going through these treatment plants. And so we saw that being used for COVID. In this case now we see Mpox being detected at a plant in Greenville. So what does that mean as far as people in that area, or even just beyond, greater state of North Carolina? What do folks need to know at this point, given, I guess, since it is a different clade, as you mentioned, from the cases that have been previously confirmed here in the state?
So I would say, I think you gave kind of a great example. We used wastewater testing in COVID. And so for Mpox, it really just gives us kind of an early warning that we might be seeing transmission of this new type of Mpox in the state. Wastewater is not the water that you're drinking, so there's no risk of infection from the wastewater. These virus that we're detecting is kind of broken down particles, and we can't really say if it's one case or more than that, but we do think it means that there's probably an unidentified case that is in that part of North Carolina.
Are there any specific risk factors for contracting this? Are there certain groups that might be at higher risk of catching Mpox, if you will?
Well, for clade 1, there's a very large outbreak occurring in Central and Eastern Africa at the moment of clade 1. And so we've only seen 4 cases of clade 1 mpox so far in the United States, and all of those cases were travel related. So I think there is still a good chance that we are seeing a travel related case here in North Carolina. So travel to Central and Eastern Africa would be one of the risk factors. Grade 2 risk factors were a little bit different, and we saw that trans more in the gay, bisexual, men who have sex with men community, and that might still be a risk factor, but those 4 grade 1 cases that we've seen elsewhere in the United States were travel related.
Now, I was just curious if we could talk about the wastewater surveillance in general, just because this is a really interesting concept for me. Of course, we talked about it being used for COVID, and in this case, mpox. And I've been seeing a lot of reporting coming out of Texas where they're dealing with the measles outbreak, where it looks like there are health authorities that are testing the water out there specifically for measles. So I'm just curious here in North Carolina, what sort of viruses that we can test for in the wastewater. Is this something where, you have to decide that you want to test for a specific virus and then set up the system for it? I'm just curious how that works.
So we have the North Carolina Wastewater Monitoring Network here in North Carolina, and we have many utilities, sewer sheds throughout the state that help us with this detection. And currently we test wastewater for COVID, for flu, for RSV, and for mpox. We can definitely stand up some testing for some other diseases that are of interest, but it does take a little bit of time to develop kind of the assays and the ability to test for that. It's still the same kind of sampling, but the lab side to test for those different viruses, it can be a little bit of work. But one new way that we've been using wastewater in North Carolina, in addition to looking at the 2 specific clades of mpox, is also subtyping our influenza positives, our influenza A positives specifically, to look for what type of influenza A is circulating and whether any of those are the strain that people know as bird flu or avian influenza. So we definitely are North Carolina's wastewater testing that is a center of excellence, and so we're kind of on the cutting edge of that, but still finding new viruses to test for, working on kind of the lab side to expand the viruses that we can test for and the capacity for that. But I will just say that wastewater testing and monitoring is at risk. The funding for that is at risk given the federal cuts that have been proposed and that have happened recently. And so that's definitely something to note, because it is such an important early warning and public health tool that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there are so many different diseases that health officials have been trying to keep an eye on. And in some cases, we talked about measles, trying to literally wrangle down cases and make sure that outbreaks aren't spreading. I heard you talking about influenza. Anecdotally, I feel like I still see people getting respiratory illnesses, in my circles. So I'm just curious. It feels late for me in the year as far as a flu season goes, but I mean, is this something that is still going on? Do you think people should be getting their flu shots if they haven't already? Once again, I know that feels late in the year for that, but is that something you're still recommending for folks?
Yeah, we are coming out of the flu season, but the flu season tends to kind of have a long tail. So there's kind of a slow decrease in flu activity. We are still seeing some COVID activity. We didn't have a huge peak of COVID this winter, and so we're still seeing activity there. So you could be seeing that. And there are also rhino and enteroviruses that cause respiratory disease. So certainly talking to your doctor about what vaccines they'd recommend. Some individuals are recommended for a second COVID shot during the year. So I'd have that conversation with your provider about what might be right for you in terms of vaccines to protect you against respiratory disease at this point in the season.
All right. We appreciate your insight, Dr. Emma Doran, once again with North Carolina DHHS. I know I threw a few extra questions at you. We wanted to talk about mpox. We certainly covered that, and then just kind of got curious about some of the other diseases that we're following in the state. So thank you for elaborating on those as well.
You're very welcome.
Folks who are watching here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, we want to take you back now to Huntersville, where we have been keeping an eye on this breaking scene. This is a deadly crash scene that we're watching on Beatties Ford Road and Sample Road, and we have our crew there right now providing us live images of the road blockage in place. We don't have the best view of the scene itself, but we can see as far as the traffic control that's happening in the area. It looks like folks, as they approach the scene, are actually being forced to turn off of that roadway and divert and find another route. So we don't know the ETA for this road reopening, but we can tell folks typically with a deadly crash scene, there are at least a couple of hours that are needed to not only investigate and then clear the scene. And historically, in having covered some of these deadly crash scenes, unfortunately, over my career, I see usually the window's about 4 hours or so. Looks like as we look far into the distance, actually, if you look towards the right-hand side of this live look that we're giving you, looks like you might have some of those crews that are either on the side of the road that are looking into this. So kind of gives you a perspective of how far down perhaps some of this scene might be going. So as we get more information, we will certainly bring you back to the scene, and in some cases you might even notice us popping it up in the bottom right corner of your screen as we dip into other feeds that are underway. And I'm just looking at our feed here that we're getting in our newsroom as far as details. So I just quickly wanted to add here, it looks like our photographer on scene, the one who's providing this live look, just put in our little messaging that we have in the newsroom that police have blocked the streets on both ends. So it looks like the police are basically keeping both sides of this crash closely locked up so that they can get everything investigated thoroughly and cleared out. So we would expect a full closure for anybody approaching the scene on either direction. Once again, Huntersville, Beatties Ford Road and Sample Road, potential for this scene to last until the evening commute. Let's turn back now to Boston, Massachusetts. We've been dipping in and out of the retrial of Karen Reed. This is this Boston case where we see this woman who is accused of killing her police officer boyfriend by backing over him with a car. Her previous trial ended in mistrial. It was back in July, and so we see things getting underway. Today, looks like we still have a witness who is giving some testimony. We'll listen in now.
And never stops until the gurney is taken off the frame of the camera to the aliens. Isn't that what I showed you?
That is.
Sure. I don't know if I can do it again. I showed you the scene where firefighter Flamani gets down on his knees, begins chest compressions, and never stops until that gurney is taken off camera, off frame, into the ambulance. That's the clip I showed you, correct?
That's the clip you showed me.
And that's exactly when you described your vivid memory from 3.5 years ago. That's exactly the scene that you described when my client supposedly said, I hit him to you, correct?
Again, the clip that you showed me, that was not when it was said. That segment that you showed, that was not when it was said. It was said prior to that, when the three of us were together.
So Flamani was not giving chest compressions then?
He was. The CPR was a continuous effort throughout the resuscitation.
But we saw him start it. Officer, Firefighter Nuttall, we saw him start it. We saw him walk into the frame, kneel down, and begin the chest compressions, didn't we?
We did.
And at no point, at that time or after, did my client even approach you, did she, in that clip?
She did.
What?
Objection.
Just a question.
Sure, sure. Do you need to see the that clip again?
Yes, please.
We're not going to show the video again. We've seen 2 videos. Which one is marked?
The Commonwealth.
One with the timestamp
Right.
at the top?
It's the exact same video. One has timestamp, one doesn't. Just to be clear, you described a very detailed scene in which firefighter Flamati got down on the ground, on his knees and began CPR.
Yes, sir.
We saw a clip that it played fully through.
Mm-hmm.
Starts and stops, but it played fully through, correct?
Yes, sir.
That was true and accurate video of what happened that day,
Yes, sir.
that morning, correct?
Correct.
And from the time firefighter Flamati began his CPR, he never stopped. Went all the way through until the burning was taken off the camera, correct?
Correct.
You also described very clearly, before you saw the video, that the time when my client walked over and you had this dialogue and you heard this statement, that it was during the time that firefighter Flamati is given the CPR, correct? You described it.
Yes, sir.
But when we actually see firefighter Flamati giving the CPR, as per your description, at no time did my client walk over and have a conversation with you, did she?
She did in the video.
In the portion that Mr. Brennan played you, was firefighter Flamati giving CPR at that point?
As I said previously,
Was he or was he not? Yes or no?
Objection.
I'm going to let the witness answer the question.
Firefighters Kelly and Flamati were trading off CPR. Tony started doing CPR, and it was passed off at one point to Firefighter Kelly. Firefighter Kelly at that time was a BLS EMT. Firefighter Flamati was a paramedic. They're going to move towards Firefighter Kelly performing CPR because at that time his skill set was not as advanced as Firefighter Flamati's, as Tony's. But they did switch off. That is a routine cardiac arrest. We switch off compressions.
But the video that Mr. Brennan showed you was earlier in time, a few seconds or a minute or two earlier.
Yes, sir.
You'd agree with that, correct?
I would.
And firefighter Flamati had not begun CPR, had he?
I don't believe so.
That's right. He hadn't. But that's the time that my client walked over your general area, correct?
Correct.
Before CPR was started, correct?
CPR was started immediately, sir.
Can we wrap this up?
I don't know if we can, Judge.
Give you a couple more minutes.
Do you understand the confusion?
Objection.
Sustained.
All right, a couple more questions on this. The video that Mr. Brennan showed you.
Yes, sir.
And you pointed to and said, oh, that's the time when she walked over and said the statement.
Yes, sir.
Remember that?
I do.
Firefighter Flamati was not even kneeling down giving CPR, was he at that point?
No,
The answer is yes or no?
No.
Okay, he was not. Later, as the video continues to run, at some point, we see firefighter Flamati enter the screen, kneel down in that bright, reflective yellow jacket, and begin CPR, correct?
Yes, sir.
You had previously said that when you heard the statement and she walked over to you, it was when firefighter Flamati was giving CPR, correct?
Yes, sir.
And at no point, you'll agree with me, we just played the video, at no point after he started giving CPR did my client come anywhere near you. Isn't that what the video showed?
That was the segment that you showed me.
You indicated on redirect, that Mr. O'Keefe did not have any injuries to the left side of his body.
Not that I recall.
Isn't it true that in addition to the egg on the right side of his head, he also had a black eye on the left side?
I remember that the swelling had started to, it's referred to kind of as raccoon eyes. It's a bruising of both eyes.
Do you remember
battle signs.
Do you remember saying, in answer to the question, did it look like in addition to the egg on the right side of his head in the front, did he also have a black eye on the left side? Your answer is, if memory serves correct, yes.
Yes, sir.
So it's not true.
We're
that he
breaking
didn't have-
right into this new live feed that just came into our Live Impact News studio here on WCNC Plus. We're getting live aerials as we are seeing a large wildfire underway. So this is coming to us from Ocean County, New Jersey. This is a little bit north of the Atlantic City area, but the county itself doesn't encompass Atlantic City. So we're seeing this is Barnegat Township specifically where this is underway. Very large flames. Bear with us, folks. This is a live feed, and since the helicopter's been moving around, we've seen the shot dip in and out here into black, and then it comes back just kind of like you see right now. So if that happens, that's not on our end. It's on their end where this feed is coming from, and sometimes, unfortunately, we just get that sometimes with the signals in some of these remote areas. But anyways, this is a wider look now that we're seeing an interesting combination that we're seeing of both the dark smoke and the light smoke. And we know that usually when you've got the darker smoke, you've got fuels that are actively burning. And so this is a situation that is, we're told, just sparked recently today, and it's been underway for, I want to say, more than an hour at this point, as far as the reporting that we've been seeing. Fire officials are reporting 150 acres of land burning in this area, and unfortunately, this is at 0% containment. We've also been seeing reports of structures that are threatened in this area. At last check, about a dozen or so. By chance, if anyone is familiar with Barnegat Township, this is Bryant Road and Wells Mill Road, specifically where we're seeing structures threatened. This is also near a wildlife management area, and you can probably tell it's a pretty heavily wooded area from what we can see from the sky here. Greenwood Forest Wildlife Management Area is the nearby large forested area that's going to be close to this. They've got some closures reported on the roadway. So once again, for folks who are familiar with this area, this is Wells Mill Road between Route 72 and Garden State Parkway, Bryant Road closed between Wells Mill Road and Route 539, and then Jones Road closed between Route 532 and Bryant Road. I realize we're here in the Carolinas, but we have folks who come here and move to the area every single day, so we might have some folks from New Jersey who might know where this is. And obviously this is a larger issue, as we've been talking about here in the Carolinas, it being so dry, and we've dealt with some periods of gusty winds, and so we've been dealing with some wildfires of our own. We're going to monitor this New Jersey feed, and once again, it kind of goes in and out of black here, so we'll move on to a pretty pertinent update that we're seeing out of North Carolina, because we are getting some good progress we're seeing with that B Rock Creek fire, which has been burning in the McDowell County area. So just a couple of hours ago, we got an update from U.S. Forest Service showing that fire, while much larger than before, it's up to 2,000 acres, is now at 50% containment. So they are making some good inroads on that fire. This has been burning for several days. As you could see as we look live at this map at some of the active fires, Carly and our producers scrolled around, and we saw the McDowell County one. And there's also the Swain County one, which we know had prompted some evacuations for folks in that area over the weekend. I mentioned I was actually up in the high country over the weekend, and we were close enough to this fire that our cell phones were actually pinging and going off and saying that there were evacuations. So it was
Could you smell it? Could you sense it or smell
we couldn't smell it from where we were. So for a little bit of perspective of like where we were on the map in relation to, once again, that leftmost red dot that we see on the map, we were around Highlands, which is probably going to be about midway between the red dot and Asheville. That's just an approximation, but so we weren't close enough to actually smell any of the smoke, but we definitely were close enough that our EAS system went off on our phones. And coincidentally enough, I mean, we were up in the high country when we were dealing with all of the Table Rock Creek fire, and we had fires burning in North and South Carolina, and we actually passed by that fire as we drove on the highway, and you can actually see the smoke billowing.
You mentioned, you went to like a drive-through and you could see the
ash was coming through. We stopped, to get some food and rolled down the window at the drive-through, and there were ashes that were falling through into our vehicle. Important to note, actually, that reminds me that we do have reports of some air quality issues out in the areas of these fires that are burning. I think at last check we were seeing maybe a moderate or orange air quality alert for those folks. So definitely a concern for people who have sensitive respiratory or any sort of breathing issues on a normal basis. We're getting some really stunning images back here in New Jersey. I don't know if we want to head back there just because we continue to see not only flames, but, you know, as the helicopter comes around, big, billowing, towering plumes of smoke. Looks like the feed might be lost to us for just a little bit. If it comes back, folks, we'll certainly get back there. Once again, we'll just remind you here, live Impact News on WCNC Plus. These feeds are coming to us from elsewhere. We don't necessarily control the chopper or the direction of the camera, or even, you know, as we're listening in throughout the day at this Karen Read trial, if you hear anything that's, you know, something you might not hear on TV, a specific word that's not usually said on TV, sometimes that, you know, that's out of our hands. And that's, you know, just part of the nature of the beast here, dipping in and out of all of these raw, unedited live feeds. So we'll definitely, speaking of the wildfires, get an update from our weather impact team, because we're certainly seeing, you know, activity on our radar right now as far as rain is concerned. And so we'll check in with them in just a little bit to get some updates on how things are looking for our area. Is the rain helping? It sounds like it probably is helping. And what will the consequences be for, you know, on the flip side, for folks who are going to be in the evening commute tonight? Will the rain be impacting things there? We will definitely check in with our weather impact team and let you know. We have got activity with the Karen Read retrial. Okay. Just alluded to that. We've been getting in and out here out of Boston and this live look that we've got. So looks like they're moving on now perhaps to some more video evidence. And once again, this is Karen Read, accused of killing her police officer boyfriend by backing over him with a car. This is a retrial, as the previous trial ended in mistrial in July. All right, folks, we have just lost that feed. So bear with us. We will take you back there if we can get back there. And this is certainly going to be something we'll be following in the days to come, because we know this is just day one. We started with opening statements today, and so we've now gotten into some of the testimony from witnesses. And that's obviously just day one, so more to come on that front. We talked about some of the big stories that we've been following around the day. We've got, of course, this airport workers rally that our Julie Kay has been covering, so we're expecting full reporting from her coming up on our newscast here on WCNC Plus.
Or was my memory chocolate? I also wanted.
I was about to take us to an extended look at that rally, but we just got the Karen Read just moments ago. So let's get there. This is a documentary that they're playing.
Did I really say this many times as law enforcement's claiming I said it?
Thank you. I now call Kerry Roberts.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the evidence given to the court and jury in the case now herein to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated.
K-E-R-R-Y. All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Roberts.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to this jury?
Hi, my name is Carrie Roberts.
Ms. Roberts, where do you live?
I live in Canton, Massachusetts.
How long have you lived in the area for?
I was raised in the Boston area, North Shore, South Shore. I went to high school in Braintree, and I moved to Canton about 12 years ago.
Do you live alone?
No, I live with my husband and 2 children.
How old are your children presently, this day?
My son is 13, my daughter's 15.
Do you work?
Yes, I do.
Without identifying specifically where, can you share with us a little bit about what you do?
I'm an executive assistant, and I've been with my company for 18 years.
Ma'am, if you could just move the microphone just a tiny bit closer. Thank you very much. You have 2 children, You're
Yes.
married
Yes.
and you live in the area.
Yes.
I want you to tell us whether you know a person by the name of John O'Keefe.
Yes, I do.
Would you be willing to share with us when you first met Mr. O'Keefe?
Well, I went to high school with John in Braintree. He played soccer, I played soccer, so we probably hung out in middle school, but we went to 2 different middle schools. And then I hung out with him more in high school. He was a year older than me. His sister was 2 years older than him in school, and his brother was younger, so at some point I was in high school with each of his siblings.
Did you at some point become friendly with John O'Keefe?
Yes.
Could you tell us about that?
When his sister Kristen passed away, and then her husband Steve passed away, they lived in my neighborhood. John took over for the children and moved into my neighborhood as well.
When John took in the children, did you offer any assistance or any help to him?
Yes, before John was even going to take over, he was going to potentially move in with his brother-in-law and the children to help out. And then when his brother-in-law passed away unexpectedly, John took over, and I jumped in because I was a friend from high school that he knew, and he had all kinds of people helping, but he sort of said, I'm going to lean on you for right now because I know you best. And I knew his parents and his siblings, and so I introduced him to my husband, and we jumped in. It was, preschool drop-offs, preschool pickups for my son and his son, and just from then until the time of his death, we were just friends, very close friends, and we hung out all the time. The children hung out all the time, and he was the emergency contact list at my children's school to call if something had happened.
Were you close friends before he took over the care of the children?
No, I wasn't very close friends with him then.
Were you close with his family before he took over care of the children?
No.
Did your friendship with him develop after he took care of the children?
Yes.
You mentioned you have a son?
Yes, I do.
And is your son the same age as John's nephew?
Yes.
Was there any common interests or activities that engaged your son with John's nephew?
Well, they went to in-home daycare together. They went to preschool together. They went to pre-K together. Then they went to elementary school. They've played baseball together since they were T-ball. My son plays hockey. Patrick tried hockey. He didn't like that. So we spent a lot of time at the baseball fields together.
As you spent a lot of time together and had mutual care of children, did your relationship with him grow closer?
Yes.
And can you share a little bit with the jury how close you became?
Well, John was a bachelor, and he didn't have any children of his own, so when he took over for the children, he sort of, leaned on us to kind of guide him and, all the things to do if someone has a headache and, if there's an ear infection or, he had his mom and dad also helping as well, but I was right up the street. So if I would go to BJ's, I would call and say, can I grab you anything? If I would go to Walmart, any of the places I would go, I would call and say, do you need anything? Can I help you? Can I grab something for you? And he did the same. We just sort of all chipped in and helped.
As your friendship grew, could you tell us a little bit about your relationship with John?
John and I were very close. We spoke on the phone and hung out. He became very close with my husband as well because he was right down the street. But we just had a friendship, a very close friendship.
Tell us about the day-to-day activities and how you would try to assist John with the children.
Well, John moved across town. I don't remember when. I forget how many. Patrick, I think, was in 5th grade or 4th grade, and I would take him home with me on Wednesdays because John would be working. So it was more of a, if he was at my house and my daughter needed a ride the other side of town, he would take her with him. We were just very close friends. We did a lot together. We would do baseball tournaments together. We would have drinks together. We would, all the things friends do.
As you grew closer to John and helped with the children, did you become closer with his family?
Yes.
And who specifically did you become closer with?
Mrs. O'Keefe and Mr. O'Keefe, his parents. And Paul, I would see from time to time, but not a lot. He doesn't live in Canton. But Mr.
All right, we'll bring you back to the Karen Reed trial as more gets underway with day one here of this retrial. Meantime, we want to turn to some new live images coming in here to the Live Impact News studio out of Kansas. So this is Garden City, Kansas, where we're seeing officials, including the Kansas Governor Laura Kelly, as well as folks with the Department of Health and Environment leadership, talking about the measles outbreak there. At last check, we were seeing some numbers upwards of 36 or so cases that were reported. And actually, coincidentally, just a few moments ago here on Live Impact News, we were sitting down with that health official from here in North Carolina talking about how they're doing wastewater surveillance for measles in West Texas, where they're seeing an outbreak as well. Let's listen in once again. This is Garden City, Kansas.
Adults over the age of 20, pregnant women, and those with a weakened immune system. Like we've all said today, vaccination is our best defense against this outbreak. The MMR vaccine is 93% effective against measles after one dose and 97% effective after 2 doses. Normally, we recommend receiving the first dose at 12 to 15 months of age, with the second dose given between 4 and 6 years of age. However, with this outbreak, we are recommending an early extra dose at 6 months for babies in the 8 affected counties and their surrounding counties. Adults who have not been vaccinated can get both MMR vaccines as long as they're at least 28 days apart. If you think you've been exposed to measles and are unsure of your vaccine status, please contact your healthcare provider as soon as you can, as you may be able to get an MMR vaccine within 3 days of exposure or an immune globulin treatment within 6 days of exposure, both of which would significantly lower your risk. If you have an exposure, then you would want to watch for symptoms like a fever or rash for 21 days. Stay home during that time and avoid high-risk places like schools, daycares, and healthcare facilities if possible. And if you do get measles, stay home. You are contagious from 4 days before the onset of the rash up until 4 days after when the rash first appeared. Do not go to work, do not go to school, do not go to any public places during that time. Ask your healthcare provider when it is safe again for you to be out in public around other people. And I can't stress enough how important it is to receive that MMR vaccine to protect yourself, your family and loved ones, and those in your community against this outbreak. We are continuing to work very closely with all of our local health departments across Kansas, local and state officials, the CDC, and healthcare providers to ensure the measles in cases are properly monitored and contained as best as possible. Lastly, we are continually assessing and evaluating our supplies, our availability of MMR vaccine, testing supplies, and to ensure that all Kansans have access to the health care they need to prevent measles, whether they are insured or uninsured. And with that, I'll hand us over to Dr. Clifford.
Thank you for having me today. Good to see members of a lot of our governing boards here today. Also want to introduce my colleagues from the legislature, Lon Pishney, District 122, and earlier I saw Bob Lewis sitting there with my wife Jean from Garden City. The governor earlier paraphrased a gentleman named Samuel Crumbine. Many of you haven't heard of him, but he was a very famous doctor in Dodge City, Kansas, around the turn of the century. In fact, he's viewed as the father of public health. The governor said the health of each of us depends on the health of all of us. And Dr. Crumbine really promoted that. He was instrumental in limiting TB spread. His famous phrase there was, "Don't spit on the sidewalk." In fact, they had it engraved in bricks. Because the tuberculum would be spread that way. He eliminated common drinking cups that would pass for water fountains in those days, and common
Sorry, folks, looks like we are getting a little bit of a hiccup in this live feed here. This is a feed that we were following out of Kansas. Just a quick recap. So this is state officials with Kansas giving updates on this measles outbreak, which we saw at last check entailed about 37 or so cases, none that have been fatal. It looks like the feed is back up. Is that okay? Looks like we've got it back. We'll send you back there now.
The legislature is still going to pay for that, so we can get those test results back very quickly to let people know if they have measles and what their quarantine ought to be. You know, I view this as the tip of the iceberg. The governor asked us earlier what our thoughts were. We do report 37 cases, but if you talk to anyone in healthcare, there are several people sitting at home with red spots, while one person who's the sickest is coming into the emergency room. So realize that it's out there. It is very contagious, and if you're not vaccinated, you ought to be. And we adults, as well as our children, need to go in and get our MMR. I do want to thank, again, Trudy for her response. The health department's doing a great job. I visited Bright Blue, which is the Tyson Clinic. Joanna Coronet has stocked up on MMR and is handling a lot of inquiries from employees. Visit our FQHC, Genesis. Dr. Selma Schultz there in OB, but she's helping with the response and the isolation, and Mary Gonzalez, who runs that. Also the EMS, you know, there are folks here who are healthcare responders who can't avoid running into this disease. We have a new director there, Kenny Smith. I went to their meeting on Thursday, and they are responding very well to this outbreak. So as always, we kind of bootstrap ourselves. No offense, Governor, but we don't wait for help from Topeka. We take care of things here. I learned that long ago during the Tyson fire that, you know, the cavalry does not arrive right away. We have to do self-help and mutual aid here, and we do a great job of it. I have not visited, but I've reached out to several of my counties in southwest Kansas, and they're having a similar strong, proactive response. So I think we can put a lid on this, but we certainly need the help of the community to do it. I think we're going to open this up for questions. The governor and Dr. Totner come back up, and can't answer anything about Gaza, but happy to talk about measles.
Yeah, for those of you in the audience, if you have is it just going to be press questions?
For now.
Okay.
I was going to ask, did you get any new cases identified from exposure at Clarion Inn at all?
Let me go ahead.
As far as we know, there are none. We are almost out of the incubation period where folks exposed would have shown up with symptoms. So I don't know, Dr. Taunton, any comment on that?
That's correct.
Trudy, any comments from our public health officer?
We are continuing to monitor, but yes, like you said, we are close to the end of the incubation period.
So we'd give it all clear at the Clarion, open for business.
I was also going to ask, I know you guys dropped that 37 number a few times. Do you have any updated number from like the last update on the website, or that you can share?
I'm sorry, the difference between the 37 and the last
weekend or
the weekend. I don't believe that there have been any additions over the weekend to that site.
We update the website every Wednesday.
So look tomorrow, because the website gets updated on Wednesdays.
We did have 2 negative tests over the weekend, so folks are coming in for testing, and I would highly encourage folks who have a high fever or, in the case of my practice, red watery eyes, don't come into my clinic. Go to the health department and get your drive-up testing, because we don't want you inside a Pete's clinic, the public health clinic, or any medical facility spreading the virus. But our health department has excellent drive-up testing, and folks should avail themselves of that.
I was going to say, I know you held a presser on this today and everything. I'm just wondering how this outbreak compares to past years and why you felt like you needed to talk about it today specifically.
Well, we haven't had any measles in Kansas diagnosed since 2008, so there has been no need for this. I think the fact that we have 37 documented cases, and we have no idea how many other cases there might be out there, that it was important for us to bring together the state and local and medical to let the people in this region know what's going on and what they can do to protect themselves and their children.
With, of course, how easily measles
spread? Is this thing preparing for it to spread beyond just southwest Kansas?
Yes, as I had mentioned, we are in very frequent, regular communication with the local health departments, having weekly meetings to help address questions in Southwest Kansas, as well as holding regular meetings with other health departments around the state, trying to engage healthcare providers, but really increasing the awareness, because one of the best things is, of course, as we've talked about all today, is really making sure we're getting those doses of the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine that offers excellent protection against this disease and is really our best defense at stopping this outbreak.
And I would like to thank KDHE. We have secretaries.
Okay, folks, we've been listening live here to a briefing from state officials from Kansas. This is a measles outbreak, a discussion that we're seeing with primarily the big messaging, as we've been seeing with a lot of these health agencies that are trying to get these infectious diseases under wraps, talking about the importance of vaccination. And in this case, we heard them talking about the MMR vaccination. Important to note, as we've talked about, in this discussion about measles, this was a disease that was previously considered eradicated in the United States as far back as about 2000, and now we are starting to see more and more cases. In fact, earlier here on Live Impact News, we were talking with a health official from North Carolina about Mpox and how they had detected Mpox in the wastewater in Greenville, and we discussed the fact that we are seeing wastewater testing now being done in places in Texas, for example, where they're obviously dealing with a much larger outbreak. And it looks like actually as just a few moments ago, Texas officials put out an update on their measles cases, and it looks like they have 624 now that have been confirmed since late January. And they are seeing, unfortunately, in some of these cases, hospitalization required, and 2 deaths, in fact, of school-aged children. These children were not reported to be vaccinated, and they had no underlying conditions, according to health officials. So more on this topic to come. Meantime, we continue to watch a lot of the mourning process that is playing out following the death of Pope Francis. Obviously, a global headline of note, and many folks mourning the Pope today. We are seeing actually some services that are happening over in the area of Rome, and so we want to take you there live right now as we hear. We're told this is a rosary service. So for folks who aren't Catholic, the rosary is essentially the chain of prayers, and maybe you might have seen this, but it's usually the beads that you see that are kind of shaped in a circle, and then there's a cross at the end. And this is a ritual that can be done in the sense of you can pray for anything. You can set your own intentions, and in the case of the passing of a person, you can set your intentions towards the respite of their soul, and that's what we're seeing here. So this is a live feed. Keep in mind, due to the time difference, this is going to be a little bit later in the evening. I think we're going to be closer to about 9:30 over there in Rome, but this is Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica in Rome, and I don't know if we're getting any good audio. We can listen in just for a little bit, but if not, okay, it sounds like we're not. Just wanted to let you know that this is underway, and once again, we talked about this yesterday, the death of the Pope kicking off what's called Novendialis. It's the 9-day mourning period, after which we'll start to see the process underway of conclave, which for any folks who are interested, just because it is such an interesting ritual tradition and kind of secretive, our team, the past couple of days have been diving into what we know about that selection process. So if you're interested, I would advise you to stay tuned here on WCNC Plus, because our Megan Bragg today for us, yesterday she talked about what exactly is conclave and how does that work. Today she's specifically speaking on whether there would actually be any U.S. cardinals who are involved in the selection of the next pope, because we know that they have the College of Cardinals, and overall, hundreds, more than 200 cardinals, but there are only a few that would be able to make the selection, because it's cutoff age of 80. So if you're older than 80, then you won't be able to be part of the process. And these cardinals come from all over the world, including the United States. So Megan is going to take a look at exactly how many are from the U.S. and if there are any from the Carolinas, and really just an interesting process to consider. And we'll definitely keep you posted on how things go. But once again, we're just in the middle of Novendialis at this point, the mourning period. And so there are quite a few more days left of that. And it sounds like there will be some formal services come this weekend. So with that, we want to turn back to the retrial of Karen Reed. This is coming to us live out of Boston, Massachusetts. We mentioned before Karen Reed accused of killing her police officer boyfriend, day one of this retrial. And we are still hearing testimony right now.
I did. When I was in the car, I thought to myself, well, she thinks he got hit by a plow. I'm going to call the police and see if there was any accidents or maybe something happened. They brought him in. And I spoke to the officer who said, no, nothing of that sort. I've been here all night. And then I called the Good Samaritan Hospital and Milton Hospital to see if they had anybody that was taken in an accident.
When you called the police to look for Mr. O'Keefe, did you call 911?
No, I called the non-emergency line.
Do you know if that call was recorded?
I believe so.
I'd like to introduce an exhibit.
Okay. Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Exhibit 9.
When you called the police, what was your level of worry at that point?
I wasn't super worried. I mean, he didn't come home, but they were out drinking, so I assumed, like my husband said, he's probably on somebody's couch.
The second call you had with Miss Reed, can you describe her demeanor in that second call?
Breaking in with some new images from Huntersville. You're watching on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus as our crew is giving us brand new images, different angle here of this crash scene that we've been following for a little more than an hour at this point. This is Beatties Ford Road, Sample Road, and if you remember before, the previous shot that our crew was showing had basically the traffic diversion process underway. So we saw folks being turned off of the roadway. This one shows a much better look at that scene, and we can see a lot of the emergency crews there. Keep in mind, sorry, this is a raw feed, and our crew is in the process of moving around. So you might see the camera move around. So just wanted to, set that scene for you, just so you know, we're not fully in control of what happens here, although we can always try to let our crew know. But we can see actually here, a vehicle looks like it's overturned on the side, perhaps involved at some point with that stone railing. I'm not totally sure, but this is a scene that looks like it is in the process of clearing at this point, because as we're watching at this very moment, the tow truck kind of backing up into that area. So just to recap for folks who aren't familiar with this is something that came into our newsroom before 2 o'clock, just before 2. This was a scene we saw fire department even having to respond to medic. It looked like there could have been someone stuck in the vehicle, and based on these images that we're seeing now of the vehicle itself, we can see why potentially someone might be stuck in there. But unfortunately, somebody did pass away following this crash. This is Beatties Ford Road and Sample Road, and when we heard most recently from authorities closer to the 2 o'clock hour, they basically prepped us for the potential and likelihood that this would be a closure that would last for a while. And we continue to watch it. While it does appear as though they're trying to get that tow truck closer to the scene, we were preparing for the possibility that this might kind of butt up against the evening rush. And so we'll just continue to watch and see how this transpires. But we'll continue to dig for more information. We are reaching out to Huntersville Fire and Huntersville Police to see if anyone would like to share a few more details or give us a statement. It looks like they're still kind of in the process of investigating, and they kind of have their hands full right now. But as soon as we get more information, we'll let you know. This is Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, once again bringing you brand new live images of the Huntersville crash. large presence that we're seeing out there, and no doubt even with the lighter part of the evening commute starting to trickle in now, I can imagine there's probably going to be some backups in this area, and once again preparing for the potential of this to butt up into the heart of evening rush. Trying to kind of get an idea of what they could be doing. I see a rope there. I don't know if that's tied to the actual vehicle, if they're trying to maybe turn it over. I'm not so much of an expert on this, but it looks like they're... So it doesn't fall. Yeah. So our producer, Jeb, speculating here that they could be preventing it from tipping over even more. But it's a very stunning image to see this vehicle there on the side, and kind of curious too to see exactly how that happened. We pointed out the fact that there's this big rock guardrail that you see there on the right-hand side. I don't know if the vehicle somehow managed to tip over that or hit it and tipped over. I'm not quite sure. And quite frankly, it looks like there's a lot of discussion right now. Actually, I can kind of see there's like a tow truck driver who's kind of peeking over the edge. Looks like even folks responding are trying to figure out how they're going to get this uprighted and out of the area. And so, yeah, it looks like the gentleman has to kind of do a little bit of navigating around here through the woods on the other side of that railing to kind of see how they're going to do this. Kind of interested myself how they do this, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on things for you. Looks like they're starting to get some of the equipment underway. Maybe we'll start to see this thing move in just a few moments. Who knows? I've never actually gotten to see this process up close like this before, which is really interesting perspective to get from our crew there on scene. And once again, apologies, folks, bear with us. Our camera crew out there, they have to make sure that they're set up in a safe place, that they're in a place that they're allowed to be as far as, not interfering with any investigation, also making sure that they're getting different angles for us too. So you might see the camera move around from time to time. And this is a raw, unedited feed, so you'll probably see all of that as we show this to you now. A lot of police officers there. Not sure where they might be in the investigation. I suspect if they are starting to pull the vehicle out, they've probably done all of the evidence gathering that they need to, and so they feel confident that they're good to remove everything now and get the way paved for cars.
It looks like, and again, this is all speculation here, it looks like they have hooked up the car to that tow truck. I would assume, and again, all speculation here, that they'll use the winch on the tow truck to try to get the car right side up. That's why we saw it roped in. Mm-hmm. They can pull it and hopefully get it to a right side up to where they could be able to actually push it, or pull it out of that little area. That's what it looks like right now.
I guess I was curious if they were going to try to pull it over the rail. Like you don't want to damage the railing,
because we don't know how, does this brick go, you can't see where it goes. Does it make like a 90-degree right? Are they able to pull it out? We don't know if they have to get it over, or if they can pull it out or go forward. Here, we've got a wider shot right here.
The other thing too, Jeb, if we're able to, I know previously we showed the map. I don't know if it's possible to take a look and just kind of give folks an idea of, the general area, since we haven't showed that in a while. And at this point, we might even be able to see whether there are backups. And I just suspect, this is probably an area where you deal with a few cars at the very least.
Well, Charlotte, every area is like that now.
3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we are getting, closer and closer towards the time when we start to get those volumes up. So bear with us, folks. We're going to try to see if we can get that map up for you. We wanted to kind of set the scene here as we get to the bottom of the hour. We've been watching live images from our crew there on scene, giving us a look at this deadly crash that has been underway for more than an hour at this point, maybe getting closer to an hour and 45 minutes at the very least. This is Huntersville, Beatties Ford Road, and Sample Road, where unfortunately we know someone has lost their life following this crash. From the images that we've been getting from the scene just a few moments ago, you saw There's a vehicle that's been turned over on its side. And at this point, we've been watching first responders as well as the tow truck operators themselves trying to kind of figure out how they're going to get the vehicle around this barrier. So I just popped my box down so you can kind of see on the right-hand side, there's that dark shape just to the right of the stone railing. That's the vehicle on its side. And so they've got it hooked up to the actual tow truck with a cable, and we're going to see if they're going to try to pull it over the guardrail or pull it around. We don't know.
Space we have between the actual vehicle and the tow truck, but they're not. I mean, there's not a lot of room to work here.
Yeah, yeah. From a traffic perspective, we talked about this before, but backups, closures expected for a little bit longer, and we did see some traffic diversion when we had our crew set up on the other side of the scene. So we saw actually officers blocking the road before folks even got to this area, and they were making folks turn onto a nearby street, either to find a new route or make a U-turn and come back around. But there we can have the map pulled up for you, kind of get a better idea. Beatty's Ford Road, basically running diagonally from the top to the bottom of your screen, somewhat diagonally, and then Sample Road jutting out perpendicularly to the left there. And looks like we've got maybe a church in the area. I'm seeing Boy Scout troop that might be around here, and maybe some homes potentially, because I do see some plots of land. Jeb is going to try to see.
This looks like that same.
Yeah, so
rock we're looking at.
That wall basically running up alongside, looks like it could be the cemetery from the church we talked about.
Yeah, I mean, they've got this going for a long way.
Yeah.
This looks kind of like where we're looking at. Yeah, I think it's right here.
Yep. Okay.
So
yeah, that looks like the area right there.
Yeah. So it would have been coming right up as this wall started on Beatty's Ford. I mean, you can see there's a little curve here. Might have taken that too far. I mean, again, you don't want to speculate, but it's right after a curve.
And I see now we've got the tow truck moving. I don't know if they're going to reposition, or I don't even know if that cable is attached anymore. They might have given up, and they're going to.
They might be coming in the front and pulling it around. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I thought that would probably be the best, way to get around it, because you don't want to try to drag the vehicle over the
wall.
I
mean, I feel like you've really damaged the wall.
But just really a tough scene. I mean, we hate to hear that someone has lost their life here, and it sounded like it was a pretty scary scene in the interim. When first responders were trying to get there, it sounded like the person might have been stuck in the vehicle. And we can understand why, as we see now that it is on its side.
Do we know if the person's out?
So now we're watching here. It looks like they're going to try to reposition things, see if they can pull the vehicle at a different angle. And once again, we did hear from authorities this would likely take a long time to clean up. And really the live images painting that picture of one of the factors in the lengthiness of not only the investigation, but also this cleanup here, because it is a bit of a predicament as we're watching it. I've just been keeping an eye on the tow truck operators. They've been conferring, they've been speaking with officers, they've been looking around different angles. At one point we saw them hooking up the vehicle to the cable, to see if they can kind of like pull it, but inevitably they just decided to reposition the truck and see if they can get at it at a different angle. Got another vehicle with flashing lights, amber lights, so I don't know if that's a separate tow truck that is arriving here.
Let's ask our photog.
Yeah, we can see if we can ask our crew. We have, once again, someone who is on the scene there, operating the camera, Carrie Corley. So thank you so much, Carrie, for trying to get us, the best perspective here, and also sharing details. He's been sending us notes here and there to basically kind of explain what we're seeing. But looks like we've got another vehicle with amber lights that is coming up alongside here. We don't know if that's a second tow truck. Might be necessary considering the unusual angle that they have to deal with. Maybe they're going to try to use one tow truck to pull in one direction and the other tow truck to pull in a slightly different direction.
Pulling it out and over.
I mean, this can be really tricky. I mean, I've previously did traffic. I have reported on traffic for probably more than 10 years of my career. And so I've seen different scenes, and I learned a bit about some of the equipment. I mean, obviously not super extensive, but they have even heavy duty tow trucks, because sometimes you'll see, obviously not in this case, but larger vehicles, if they have a situation where a semi truck has overturned, they might have to bring out larger, pieces of equipment with bigger cranes, like giant cranes, to try to get things upright. And these folks have to deal with all sorts of conditions, They're there, they're on the side of the road. They're, working in all sorts of weather. They're dealing with all sorts of scenes. And sadly, in this case, you have a tragic scene where someone has lost their life. You've got ditches that you might have to deal with. You have barriers like we see here, all sorts of terrain. So they've got to know their craft. They've got to be good at it. And this is just an interesting look at what they're going to try to do here. I'm curious to see. Maybe worth mentioning at this point, since we are looking at flashing amber lights, we talk about the importance, obviously not in this case, you're not going to be driving past the scene since we've got a full blockage, but you always want to be careful for those crews that are working on the side of the road. We've got move over laws in a lot of states, including in the Carolinas. So we always like to remind people to, preserve the lives working on the side of the road. You have officers, you have firefighters, medic, you have tow truck operators who are, sometimes we see them on the sides of interstates with traffic zooming past at, 60, 70 miles per hour. And, these move over laws were put into place in some states to try to prevent tragedies that they've seen in states from happening again. People who have been accidentally struck on the side of the roadway while trying to attend to scenes. And in most of the cases where I see, I've worked in several states at this point, but you either want to move over the lane that's closest to the scene. So if you have something that's happening on the shoulder, you want to move over that direct travel lane that's running next to it. If you can, you see here in this case, if there were to be traffic that's moving through, you obviously couldn't move over because it's one lane this way, one lane the other way. You would want to slow down significantly as you pass by. The different thresholds we see depending on the state, but I believe in North Carolina, the term that they use is significantly. And yeah, it's all just to protect the people who are trying to do their jobs and keep us safe too. And they have to do it kind of next to some dangerous conditions in cases. All right, we are approaching 3:45, so got another quarter hour left here. So we might be getting close here to the start of our evening news. I just want to let folks know, if we've got some new folks joining us, what we've been watching here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. This is a live look from our crew on scene, Huntersville. We've seen Beatties Ford Road at Sample Road closed off due to this scene where we've got, from what we can see with our own eyes here, an overturned vehicle. And we sadly have heard someone has lost their life. And we've tried to get a few more information or details from authorities about, the circumstances here. We're still waiting to hear back. It sounds like authorities have their hands full investigating and also dealing with other cases as well across the area. So we'll be patient, and of course, once we get more, we'll share more with you. But, as far as travel perspective, we can certainly tell you that there is a full closure. We see that. We see, based on other angles that our crew is able to show us earlier in our stream here, that we've got officers on scene who are actually diverting traffic. So chances are you might not even make it to this point of the scene. Chances are you'll be diverted off of Beatty's Ford Road before you even get there. We've specifically have been seeing folks being made to turn onto side streets before they get to this scene. And we talked about the potential of this kind of getting into the rush hour commute, the evening commute. We are getting closer to that. You know, as we watch the clock here, we know more and more people are getting on the roadways, either starting to leave work maybe a little bit early or, maybe bringing the kids somewhere, going out to dinner, late lunch, early dinner, who knows. But that will be something that will definitely be impacting your drive. And, as far as like a logistical situation, we've actually been watching this over the last several minutes. There seems to be a lot of question amongst the tow truck operators about how they're physically going to remove this vehicle. So we've seen them kind of trying different things. We'd actually talked about, the tow truck with the crane, so we can actually see that in operation right now. The red tow truck, it's got its crane erect now, and they're going to be hooking up some cables here. And a few minutes ago, we saw the white tow truck pull up alongside. So I don't know if they're going to try to, tag team this. There are multiple folks out here who are working on this. But from one of the difficulties we can tell just from what we've been able to watch and deduce, there's an issue here with the barrier. So you can see just to the right of the tow truck, just behind the gentleman who's kind of like leaning on it a bit, there's a big stone barrier that runs all the way down the side of the road away from the camera. So starting where the gentleman's standing, it's right there next to the shoulder. And that vehicle's overturned on the other side of it. So we've been trying to see if they were going to try to lift the vehicle over the barrier or pull it from the back around. Starting to see now that fire truck moving. Maybe we've got some first responders now being cleared from the scene, just some of them. We know that fire had been dispatched here to try to assist anybody who might be stuck in the car. And so perhaps not being needed anymore, they're leaving. But police officers remaining on scene there, and there we see medics showing up. Actually leaving. They're leaving. They were just turning around. So as we watch this, we get closer now to our 4 o'clock hour. Sorry, bear with me. I was just getting a sip of water. But we've got a few headlines that we're going to keep an eye on as our evening team comes on here on WCNC+. We obviously will have the very latest on this. We've got a lot of big stories, too, in our area. We've mentioned this before, and we've been showing you some extended clips, but our Julie Kay is going to be sharing more on this airport workers rally that happened, and a little bit of background on that. You've been seeing some of our coverage over recent months from these workers at the Charlotte Douglas International Airport talking about, their demands for better pay and compensation and scheduling. So they were talking about how they think a city ordinance can help now. And so Julie is going to talk about, what they spoke on this rally, and also the measure itself, the ordinance that these folks are supporting. And also we're seeing lawmakers getting involved. Alma Adams, we know Congresswoman Alma Adams, representing the Mecklenburg County area, was at this rally. So we'll stay tuned for that. Her first report's actually going to be coming up at 4 o'clock. So this is just moments away. We'll be keeping an eye on, of course, local reaction to the Pope, passing away yesterday, and also some interesting deeper dives because, quite frankly, there's a lot of tradition and process and, in some cases, secrecy that comes with the death of a pope and how a new pope is appointed. So our Megan Bragg, who's been really great with our Verify team, digging into kind of the different processes for us over the years, she's now turning her attention to the College of Cardinals and how many folks from this college will be in charge of selecting a new pope when they do eventually go into conclave. And just a little background on that, we mentioned that there are more than 200 cardinals around the globe, but you cannot vote in this conclave if you are over the age of 80. And so she's going to take a look at some of those rules, but also how many cardinals are from the U.S. and are there any cardinals from the Carolinas? Because that is interesting to think what kind of influences will be at play here as the Catholic Church decides its next leadership. And we mentioned this yesterday during our coverage of the passing of Pope Francis, the fact that he was seen as a progressive pope by many, and in some ways he took the church away from, but from conservative perspective, away from some of those positions. But in some ways, we saw folks that cheered that. So there was kind of, I don't want to say two sides because there's always multiple sides to things, but, that is setting up a big debate here now that Pope Francis has passed away. What will be the direction of the church now, and who they choose as the next pope will kind of show which direction the church wants to go. So we've actually heard from, speaking of local reaction, multiple folks from our area, including, the Catholic Diocese of Charlotte. So we actually have for you now some reflections from the Catholic Church here in the Charlotte area that we can take you to now. And we invite you to listen in now as we share that with you. And once again, here on Live Impact News, we'll break in if anything else comes to light.
Good morning. Grateful to all of you for being with us today on this very sad and mournful occasion, but also at the same time an occasion of hope. Hope in the belief that we as Catholics have that the faith that we have in Jesus risen from the dead will be all of ours. Today we've learned of the death of Pope Francis, and truly it's a day of sorrow for the Universal Church, but also in particular for the Church of the Diocese of Charlotte. Many Catholics, close to 600,000 Catholics here in our diocese in Western North Carolina, wake up this morning to this sad news and realize that the one thing that is assured for all of us is that death is not the final answer, but rather that we have been promised everlasting life. I believe it's fitting that we celebrate Pope Francis's life within the Easter season, that just yesterday, himself having celebrated Easter, having celebrated the gift of resurrection that Jesus promises to all of us, him having been able to celebrate that yesterday with all of us, he celebrates that today, we pray, in eternal life. And so I'm honored to be able to be with all of you and be with all of our faithful and all people of goodwill here in Western North Carolina as we take in this news and begin to appreciate the legacy of Pope Francis, as well as how our church continues to move forward. But today, in particular, is a day of sadness for me personally, but also for Catholics around our diocese as well as around the world. So I'm grateful for your willingness to be here today, and I'm happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Hi, Rachel with Spectrum News. We know Pope Francis was such a unique pope, even unorthodox, some people would say. What do you think people will miss specifically about this Pope?
I'm not sure I would agree with the characterization of him as unorthodox, but I would say quite the opposite. I think that one of the beauties of the Catholic Church is the long line of tradition in which each Pope has something unique and something specific through the gift of the Holy Spirit to give to us. And I believe certainly that Pope Francis giving us a particular flavor of the papacy that was his own. I found his smile to be somewhat engaging myself personally. But also I think that the way he brought to us an appreciation of the faith from a perspective of South America, where it's a different way of understanding life and the world, and I think he brought that to us as the successor of Peter, the 266th successor of Peter, and so I think he had just a genuine joy in life that was evident anytime that I only had one opportunity to meet with him, and it was clearly evident the day that I met him, but I think in many of his public appearances over the last number of years that we've all been able to appreciate that genuine joy that is part of who he was as a person, and certainly a part of who he was as a leader of our church.
What was Pope Francis like in person?
I found him incredibly affable. He, in the meeting that I had with a number of other bishops back in late September, he was very off the cuff. We were together for about 90 minutes, and in various moments, he was incredibly serious, talking about topics of incredible importance. And then moments later, in another discussion of something different, was laughing and joking and allowing the moment to dictate the response. And so in that regard, I found him incredibly genuine and someone with whom I felt an immediate comfort, and I think most people would say the same. So I think that was my impression, my takeaway.
Bishop Martin, you mentioned, of course, that there will be the opportunity for Catholics and people who want to honor the life of Pope Francis this evening. Is that something that will continue throughout the week in terms of just the churches will have their doors open and if people want to come in and celebrate or just be in their moment of sadness? What will the rest of the week look like?
Right. The rest of the week in the Church Universal, the Universal Catholic Church, we're beginning a period of 9 days of official mourning, which would happen at the death of any pope. And so obviously that will be carried out in different ways in different cultures around the world. Here in the Diocese of Charlotte, we are opening all of our churches this evening at 7 p.m. from 7 to 8 p.m. and inviting all of the faithful to come together in their local church to offer prayers and to be together as we all mourn the passing of Pope Francis. We here in the Diocese of Charlotte
So once again, seeing some reflections locally from leaders within the Catholic Church regarding the passing of Pope Francis. We'll continue to have more on that as we go on throughout this mourning period. You heard him just reference there, the 9-day mourning period. Meantime, we have to turn to some breaking news just into the Live Impact News studio. This is also coming to us from the roadways. We say also because we were just following another crash for you out of Huntersville. This one is going to be out of Charlotte, and we're seeing from CMPD closures reported on North Tryon Street and Tom Hunter Road. There's also going to be some light rail impact. It looks like the rail route there is going to be expecting delays, the Blue Line, because of the police activity related to this crash. So we just wanted to let you know because once again, we're getting closer to the evening commute, and we suspect that this probably will be not only impactful for drivers in the area, but also folks who are riding on CATs. So Information we're seeing as far as the CATS goes, we've got the blue line that's seeing some delays. Track 2 is impacted at the Tom Hunter grade crossing, and then they have single tracking that's going on right now between Old Concord and UCB stations, and that's going to be, of course, for the foreseeable future until this crash scene is cleared. So once again, road closures reported North Tryon and Tom Hunter Road, plus Track 2 seeing delays on the blue line at Tom Hunter grade crossing. With that, we want to turn to some weather impacts. This is also just into the Live Impact News studio. We've been getting some images from folks in the Carolinas. So this is coming to us from the Randolph County area, coming courtesy of our content partner out in that area. But this is Asheboro-ish, if you will. But seeing some hail. And we talked about the potential of this as we've got a system moving through our area. And you'll obviously hear much more from our weather impact team as we transition here into our 4 o'clock news in just a few moments. But we are watching for the potential of impacts. And, we know that rain is never a friend to the evening commute, but we're watching for potential impacts for folks who are about to be leaving work and getting on the roadways and seeing, at the very least, potentially a whole lot of rain. Is that a live look right now, Jeb? Okay, so Jeb's popped up here our radar, and so yeah, this is current as of, it looks like right now we've got some, activity that's off to the west here. We've got even some severe thunderstorm warnings that's going to be out of our area, but off to the east. Those are the polygons that you see flashing off to the right. I'm just going to caveat here, I'm not a meteorologist, so I'm not going to presume to know what is happening in those areas. We are just showing you what we are seeing from our perspective, this radar, which looks quite active, and just urging you to stay alert of weather impacts as we get into the evening commute. And if you can, just keep it here on WCNC Plus, because our weather impact team is going to be giving us the nitty-gritty of what is happening here